Council meeting, the first of this year for 2023. Today, Wednesday, the 25th of January. Thank you all for your attendance, and particularly to those who've joined us in the gallery today. Call the meeting open at 9 a.m. sharp, and we will note an apology for Councillor Duff, who hasn't arrived as yet, but I do believe she's on her way, so she may have been delayed on her travels. But certainly like to now welcome Pastor Glenn Vonhoff to provide us with the opening prayers for this morning. Thank you, Pastor Glenn, and we'll note that Councillor Duff has now arrived. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning to Mayor Brett Otto, councillors and council staff. It's good to be here again, representing the Christian Church of South Burnett, the Kingaroy District Ministers Association and the Baramba Ministers Association. Several years ago, I was listening to a pastor and he used the word homothermodon. It was a bit of a mouthful. And for us who are not Greek scholars, it's a biblical word, and it's used in the book of Acts. And according to the dictionary, it means with one mind, with one accord, with one passion. And the definition goes on to say that this word helps us understand the uniqueness of the Christian community. Homothermodon is a compound of two words meaning to rush along in unison, or to rush along and in unison. The image is sort of like an orchestra, where every instrument is different, but they work together in harmony to make a wonderful sound. Paul uses the word in Romans 15:5-7. He says this: "May the God of endurance and encouragement grant you to live in such harmony with one another, in accord with Jesus, that together," and that's word homothermodon is used there, "that together you may with one voice glorify God the Father and our Lord Jesus Christ." And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be good if my church worked like that? Wouldn't it be good if all the churches worked together like that? Wouldn't it be good? You can see where this is going, can't you? Wouldn't it be good if the federal government worked like that? The opposition and the government worked together for the good of the people. Wouldn't it be good if the state government worked like that? Wouldn't it be good if local governments worked like that? And I thought of the South Burnett Regional Council. And you guys do a lot of great things. I read the stuff that comes through on the computer, the internet. I read the papers, and you do a lot of fantastic things, and I commend you for it. Do you make mistakes? Well, of course you do. We all do. Can you do better? Well, probably you can. And I just want to bring that word homothermodon to you today, to work together in unison with a passion for the people of the South Burnett. Keep doing the good things that you do. Keep striving to work with a passion and a love for the people that you serve. Let us pray. Lord God, we thank you that we live in Australia, where we have the opportunity to work together for the betterment of our society and to strive to meet the desires of our citizens. As these councillors here today work together to serve their fellow man, we ask that you guide them so that they work with one heart. Help them to show Christ-like love to one another and towards their constituents. We also thank you for the staff and workers of our council. Bless them, give them wisdom as they look after the everyday operation of the council and do all the work required in the offices and in the field. Thank you for the abilities you have given each councillor and staff so they work together in harmony, in peace, without confrontation as they fulfil their obligation. Grant each one love, grace, strength, encouragement, and the knowledge necessary to complete each day's work, that they might receive your blessing in the work they do. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. God bless.
Thank you sincerely, Pastor Glenn. We trust that you'll have an enjoyable and fruitful day, and God bless you. Councillor Duff, for the recognition of our traditional owners, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders both past, present and emerging. Thank you.
Okay, in relation to today's agenda, does any councillor have a declaration of conflict of interest to share? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I, Councillor Kirsty Schumacher, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 17.1, material change of use, service station food and drink outlet showroom at Rogers Drive, Kingaroy, applicant Property Opportunities Holdings. The nature of my interest is as follows. The declarable conflict of interest arises due to myself house sitting as a temporary arrangement on a neighbouring property. The neighbouring property is directly next door. I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted upon. The owner of that property is a very good friend of mine. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Good, thank you, councillor. Duly noted. Anything further? Okay, we'll move on to item 7.1, minutes of the previous meeting. 14th December 2022 can be found at 6 on the agenda. And we have the recommendation there that those minutes be received and recommendations there and be adopted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, a seconder. Councillor Potter, thank you. Speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you all. 8.1 at 49, business outstanding. Table. It's recommended that the table for the ordinary council meeting be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder. Councillor Henson, thank you. Matters to raise. Speakers. To the vote, those in favour. Carried unanimously, thank you all. 9.1, notice of motion in relation to electricity supply on rural lot reconfigurations within rural zones can be found at 89. Okay, I'll now move a procedural motion that the matter be lifted off the table. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff. Okay, those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you all. The matter's now at hand. Mr CEO, could I proceed with presenting the amended motion as a matter of process?
Sorry, Mayor, I'll just bring that up. There is a live motion sitting on the book, so it probably needs to be amended to, so if you are proceeding with bringing forward the amended motion, it would be an amendment to that. So if we just treated it like that, it would probably be the cleanest, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Advice is valued as always. Okay, I'd now like to amend the motion, put forward an amendment to the motion. The amendment is as presented on page 89. 1. In respect of all future reconfiguration applications for the creation of allotments within the rural zoning, if approved, the following condition be made available to the applicant in relation to ENG 15 electricity supply. The applicant demonstrates that alternative sources of electricity supply, such as solar energy, if required, could be made available as an alternative option to a reticulated connection. 2, that Council incorporates the following standard statement as part of Council's response to all future applications for rate searches on rural zoned properties. Council cannot guarantee the supply of connecting electricity and telecommunications infrastructure on the property to which this rates search relates. As such, Council recommends that the applicant undertake their own due diligence in relation to such infrastructure. I'll now move the amendment to the motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff, thank you. I'd now like to speak to the motion. This matter has been at hand in Council prior to Christmas where it was discussed, and we had representation from local surveyors, planners in relation to the increasing cases where those people living in rural parts of our region are looking to perhaps rely on solar, particularly where there's agricultural initiatives being undertaken. So I won't go into a lot of detail because I think councillors are well aware of this. This proposal has been developed in consultation with those surveyors, and they're very happy with the content, as well as in consultation with General Manager O'May as the General Manager overseeing our planning department. So I'd commend it to the chamber. Further speakers, Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like some clarification. So if it's a rural property and there is future subdivision, to subdivide that further into smaller blocks, that must be rezoned. Am I correct?
General Manager O'May.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so that's right. So to split it down any further is it's just a reconfiguration lot or subdivision. So so whether it's one large lot into two or a large lot into 20, in the rural zone is that you don't expect to see those subdivisions because that's the idea is to keep it as for agricultural land. So you shouldn't be getting it split down into smaller parcels.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that we wouldn't be putting ourselves in the situation as there was in the past where areas were subdivided with no power. Some people are aware of the fact that they can go solar, but some people expect electricity, and it was actually left at that in those days that council did have to put on. So so it's not rural residential, it must be rural for this to be comply to.
Further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Just referring here, certainly I think it's a wonderful opportunity when we do have rural land that can be subdivided to provide more housing outcomes for our region. I think that's a great outcome. I just wanted to check, some of the feedback that we'd received was suggesting that we actually remove ENG 15 from our suite of proposed conditions, and I just wanted to check with General Manager O'May if he had any feedback in relation to that.
Thank you, GM.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would suggest we need to take ENG 15 out of the motion. That's just the numbering of the previous report, but the next report could come up. It could be a different number. So the ENG 15, I think, would be better if that wasn't in there. You could leave it's in relation to electricity supply that the motion is talking.
Okay, in response to that, I'm happy, Kim, just to take out, put a full stop after the word applicant, General Manager O'May, and leave the words in relation to ENG 50 electricity supply out. Would that be your advice, GM?
Into electricity supply. Yep, like it is there.
Yeah, as is there is clear that it's in relation to electricity supply.
But we'll drop off ENG 15. Thank you, Kimberly. I'm happy with that. Seconder, happy with that? Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thank you for that confirmation, Mr. Mayor. Fully supportive of the motion. I certainly think there's some exciting developments in terms of renewable energy, and there are some landholders in the region doing some incredible stuff in this space. Fully supportive. I think the more we can work with our community to overcome these outcomes, overcome these challenges and barriers, the better. So thank you.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just probably a comment more than a question, Mr. Mayor. And I guess from previous experience when we've seen subdivisions happen, my concern with this is it doesn't come back to council, and I know this states in here that the applicant demonstrates that alternative sources of electricity, such as solar, if required, could be made available, and that will be a process that the applicant has to go through. But I just, in previous developments where we see if there has to be a dwelling built and there's no power, that we don't get some substandard dwellings that come out of these rezoning. And with probably the insecurity of renewables and their long-term viability as to whether they can supply. And I guess that question has come from emergency services, that something needs to be considered there, that if there is no power or a second-rate power source on these subdivisions, that certainly needs to be looked at, and I'm sure it will be in the application process, but I just wanted to make that comment, Mr. Mayor.
Further speakers? General Manager O'May.
Yeah, through you, sir. Yeah, so my understanding is that this motion would be available to, so you're not going to see in a rural area, you're not going to see large subdivisions or splitting down into small lots, because the rural zoning is there to protect the agriculture. We've got residential, we've got rural residential, so that's where we want to see the housing housing growth. So I think this motion is probably more in relation to the situation where you've created more of another rural lot that doesn't need electricity, so making that option available. If there's a situation where we are creating it, and you do get the family lot subdivisions where there might be, if it's for a residential purpose, from a planning point of view, we'd still be looking at having that infrastructure for electricity. My understanding is this was probably just to give that flexibility rather than change so from a planning scheme, we want to provide infrastructure. From a planning point of view, we want to provide infrastructure to developments, whether it be sealed roads or water and sewage in town and electricity. So, my understanding is that it's to still, we would still look at those if we think it warrants having electricity, reticulated electricity, because you've certainly with Ergon, you've got in those powers, there are situations where we don't want to create a whole series of unserviced allotments and for electricity. But there are situations where you do get that subdivision for a rural purpose where the electricity may be difficult, costly to supply to an agricultural allotment. So, I suppose it's in the wording. But just my clarification, Mr. Mayor, I was thinking that this would be utilised in those situations where the rural subdivision was for a rural purpose. From a planning team, we'd probably still be looking at implementing a requirement for electricity if it was a subdivision for housing, a second dwelling. We potentially, with the changes of planning regulations, where relaxation for second dwellings, whether there'll be more demand. So I think it's the Mayor's trying to strike a balance. So rather than change we really don't want to change our planning scheme in saying that we're going to relax the requirement to have electricity in a residential type use subdivision. And yes, it might be in the rural zone, but certainly wouldn't support. And you do have those unserviced allotments in town. They do cause issues. So we're not trying to create that lower standard of subdivision. It's probably in those situations, and I think that's a bit trying to make that available where it is a rural purpose subdivision rather than for another residential use.
Thank you, General Manager. Further speakers? Okay. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay. The amendment becomes the resolution, the substantive resolution. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Okay, we have the substantive resolution then. Do we have any further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just appreciate the further clarification. There are a number of meetings held about this, and I think it's good that we've offered some flexibility and come to some level of arrangement. So thank you for the work done on this, Manager Meehan and Manager O'May and your team.
Okay, I'll just wrap up by saying it's been a pleasure to work with the surveyors and the guys, and I'm pleased to put this motion to the council. It's something I'm passionate about seeing resolved for our community. That's the reason I brought it forward, and it looks as though I'll have the support of the chamber, so I'll be very grateful for that. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.1 at 91, meeting dates for future meetings. Recommendation is at 93, South Bennett Regional Council. 1, fix the day, time and location for the Infrastructure, Environment and Compliance Standing Committee meetings of South Bennett Regional Council as the first Wednesday of the month, beginning in February 2023, commencing at 9 a.m. in the Warren Trust Chamber, Glennon Street, Kingaroy. 2, fix the day and time for the Livability, Governance and Finance Standing Committee meetings at South Bennett Regional Council as the second Wednesday of the month, beginning in February 2022, commencing at 9 a.m. in the Warren Trust Chamber, Glennon Street, Kingaroy. 3, fix the day and time for the Budget Committee meetings of South Bennett Regional Council as the third Wednesday of the month, beginning in February 2023, commencing at 8:30 a.m. in the Warren Trust Chamber, Glendon Street, Kingaroy. 4, fix the day and time for the General Council meetings of South Bennett Regional Council as the fourth Wednesday of the month, beginning in January 2023, commencing at 9 a.m. in the Warren Trust Chamber, Glendon Street, Kingaroy. 5, adopt the dates for council meetings January to June 2023 as follows, and they are presented on pages 94 and 95 of the agenda. Do we have a mover? Councillor Erkin, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers?
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, since this was considered at the committee meeting last year, there was a change of date to the Pound Street special meeting because some councillors were unable to attend to Monday the 20th. It's the highlighted one in the table.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Further speakers? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Oh, I can't see your light, Councillor Duff. Now I can. Okay, Councillor Duff.
Sorry, I'm just wondering why we've got one at 8:30. It's just might confuse people because it's all the others are 9 o'clock. Was there any particular reason for that one?
When we discussed it previously, the 8:30 was because the budget would be, those budget days are taking the place of 2 previous budget committee meetings last year, or last term. So we thought if we need to put a full day into it, and it's up to council if you want to move it back to 9, but 8:30, staff will be available through to 5, 6 o'clock if required on those days. So we were going to have a full day of budgeting and joy.
I'm happy with that. I just was just a question, that was all.
Okay, further speakers? To the vote. Those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. CEO and the Exec Services team. 10.2, Brisbane 2032 Olympics and Paralympic Games Legacy Plan at 96. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll be brief. This was there was a question, I think, from Councillor Shoemaker last month in regards to strategies, and so this is the first of the reports. It's come through, or we've been able to come through, placed on the agenda for Council's information, and will form part of the Olympic strategies going forward.
Okay, so it's recommended that the report be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Hanchin. Speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's certainly really appreciate the report coming through. I have logged on and actually completed my survey, and I'd encourage anybody in the region who has ideas about the upcoming Olympics and how our region may benefit to log on and do the same. I also think through the opportunities presented that this is just an important thing that council should consider in its future planning around how we may be able to extract some of those benefits regionally, being that Brisbane is so close in proximity, and there are sure to be plenty of opportunities for our region with the announcement of the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. However, we really do need to be on the front foot in getting some of those plans and that advocacy together. So just very grateful for the report, grateful that it's come to the chamber, and think, yeah, it's very important that we keep an eye on it and do what we can to get some benefits for our region.
And just in that regard, for the benefit of the community, I have been having engaging with all of the business groups at each town across the region, as well as Visit South Burnett in relation to this and the opportunities for us as a region. So I know that those organisations have picked up on my approaches in that regard, and I'm certainly making sure that I'm putting forward a strong voice at the Wide Bay Mayors Group, whereby we've got a Wide Bay Regional Planning Group in relation to the 2032 Olympics, and I've been putting forward some very strong recommendations there as to how, as a Wide Bay region, we can benefit and offer opportunities for people, particularly coming from overseas, to explore and experience our beautiful region. So there is a lot of work happening behind the scenes, and I'll look forward to bringing those reports to council as that unfolds. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm not 100% sure, but I have not seen this online. Is this something that council could share online for our community? Because we've got a lot of people in the disability sector working and sort of playing in that space. So it'd be really good if we could share this online, and if all the councils could share it within their own Facebook pages, because the more people from our community that fill this out, I think the better. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you, councillor. Further speakers? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.3, adoption of council's financial sustainability policy at 104. From the committee where this was considered has been recommended, the South Bennett Regional Council Financial Sustainability Policy Statutory 070 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Henson. Speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly there are some excellent insights in the policy and in many of the things we've discussed around adopting that zero-based budgeting mindset and the priority QTC project decision framework, which means that for council to make a CapEx decision or a decision around significant financial investment, we would require a business case analysis, particularly for any commercial activities and for any new works. And I think that's a really important sort of focus for our council, and always being mindful of how the decisions we're making today can impact future years. And certainly I think in our term we've seen that directly, where decisions made of previous councils, you know, eventually catch up to us. I just had a couple of questions or insights going over the policy. The first question is just in terms of the scope. It says the policy applies to councillors of council. I'd like to propose that we make that councillors and the CEO and executive leadership team. I think we very much work hand in hand in this space, and it's important to acknowledge that we're very much in this together. And my other question is just in relation to the QTC metrics there around our current ratios, the asset sustainability ratio, net financial liabilities ratio, and operating surplus ratio. I just wondered, I know in the conversations and training that we've had with QTC, we had some discussions about whether these ratios were really relevant and if there were any alternate metrics we should consider to really monitor how we're performing financially. And I just wondered if there was any feedback in relation to that, if there's any more work that's been done. Yeah, CEO Mark.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Yes, thanks, Councillor. There's the state government has initiated a long process last year with the draft report out on potential metrics going forward. All councils have participated in that, including ourselves. We've done submissions. We've remained good English. We've left the metrics in this, that the current legislated metrics as were applied to in this financial year. Very much hopeful that once that report is finalised, this will be updated to reflect the current metrics, and that discussion can be ongoing from that point. But yeah, up until this point, the metrics are reflective of our legislative or regulation requirements.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Fantastic. I think it's a great focus. Couple of things just in terms of just with the full, there's a dot point there in relation to our requirements as per the QTC. It says full cost pricing compliance for council business and activities. And I know that is a risk or something that's been raised of concern in terms of water services. And I just wondered, CEO Mark, if you can confirm what that actually means.
Every year, and as part of the budget, we're required under the legislation again to review all our business units, and again in accordance with the legislation. Water is the water business. Don't want to say at risk, but it's the most likely to end up in the full cost pricing space because again it will trigger those regulatory requirements. Once we hit those regulatory requirements, there is no option. It will move into full cost. But that is an annual review as part of the budget. So that clause reflects current process and legislation as far as we do the review. The state will move the metrics for that around each year a little bit if you do this many building certifications or your road business. So there's an assessment done each year and the policy reflects that, basically that process in a broad policy framework statement. But yeah, it is driven very much by legislation.
And just my last point, just dot point 3 in that same group, ongoing operating surpluses to ensure council's equity is not degraded and future financial risk can adequately be managed. Just in terms of what we're doing in that space, you know, the conversations we've had about paper deficit and the reality that while we're not funding our full depreciation with our own cash and relying on grants, that ratio often doesn't necessarily show as favourable for us. So CEO Mark, I was just wondering, in terms of this policy commitment here, how do you actually see, or can you explain that a little bit further so I understand?
Mr. CEO, can I perhaps pick that up as a qualified accountant and the finance portfolio holder? Look, can I just clarify that there is no such thing as a paper deficit. One runs a surplus or a deficit under the legislation and other accounting standards. But what this refers to is cases whereby council is running a deficit, and if we and that has the potential to diminish or reduce our equity, whereby we then go and spend cash from our bank account on items that would not necessarily be funded by depreciation, or if we have the surplus to be able to fully fund our depreciation, then we go ahead and still commit to a capital program where we don't have the funds provided through our stream of cash to fund such. So this really goes very much to I suppose, drawing on funds from the bank account of council to, I suppose, step in where there's unfunded depreciation. And that by doing that, it thereby reduces council's community asset, net asset value, and also referred to as equity. So, Mr. CEO, please feel free to add to that.
Oh, the only thing I would add, Mayor, is following its presentation at the committee meeting we did in 3.2 operating surplus, also acknowledge that it's given the variances that we have inflicted upon us by other levels of government. The financial assistance grant is a clear example, but there are others. The 5-year rolling average is maintaining that as a positive, and we maintain our 5-year rolling average because it moves the bumps and lumps out of it.
I guess, further to your comments, Mr. Mayor, I fully understand. However, I guess our asset renewal ratios demonstrate that for some asset classes, we're actually beyond the recommended 90%, and we actually exceed that. For instance, with roads, I believe our asset renewal, our asset ratio is actually much higher than the 90%, and that's topped up purely from those capital grants that we receive. And so that's what I'm referring to when it comes to a paper-based deficit. It may demonstrate that on the books. However, we are actually funding the renewal of those assets just with different funds. So that's my understanding, and certainly I appreciate your comments. But further to that, I'm fully supportive of the policy and congratulate the executive leadership team for bringing it forward.
Okay. Further speakers? No? Mr. CEO?
Mr. Mayor, so if we add, if I may, just with the resolution, if we add the senior leadership team into the scope, it would be just adopted as amended, and we'll make that change if the council is agreeable.
So can we just change, be adopted as amended? Councillors Potter and Henshin, are you comfortable with such? Thank you. Okay, just a few comments to wrap up for the benefit of the community. So item 2, Councillor Shoemaker referred to metrics. So we're talking there about measurement criteria by which council is assessed, predominantly by the Queensland Audit Office in relation to our financial performance. The regulations, Queensland Government regulations, currently list 3, asset sustainability ratio. That's basically a measurement as to how well we're going in terms of maintaining our assets across the region, be it roads, buildings, those types of facilities. The net financial liabilities ratio is really around, how are we travelling in terms of our debt to our assets, and the operating surplus ratio is how are we travelling in terms of an operating surplus. In terms of, in the private sector, it's called your profit or your loss. In our sector, we deal with cash, a combination of cash and accrual accounting, so it's referred to as a ratio, operating surplus ratio. Councillor Shoemaker mentioned that. In terms of that regulatory change, as Mr. CEO said, there is a review being undertaken. We have provided feedback to that, and I've certainly been studying that report very, very closely and continuing to study it closely, and am certainly making representation to the Assistant Minister for Local Government in relation to advocating alongside the LGAQ for more future-focused and realistic assessment criteria for councils. Because at the moment, in the environment they're working in, the future environment, those old, and I could say perhaps archaic criteria don't necessarily represent the business of modern day councils. We'll also note that 3.2, as Mr. CEO's pointed out, when we talk about an operating surplus, our aspiration there is to achieve that on a 5-year average. We'll have ups and downs at different times of the year based on the FAG grants particularly. And so that just gives us that little bit of flexibility to smooth out those the waves of funding as they stream through. 3.5, physical asset management. Again, we talk there about a measure of whether council is reinvesting appropriately in existing infrastructure assets. So, you know, we've got to find that balance between keeping the cash in the bank, but making sure that we're not letting our roads, our sewerage, our water assets run down to the point that future councils are going to have to find a bucket of money to fix them. So that's what that goes to. And I think regional councils have probably inherited a bit of that since amalgamation, where previous shire councils maybe couldn't or didn't invest in a lot of that infrastructure as we would have hoped. And that's left us now with some legacy issues there, particularly around our water and sewerage network and the capital program for that into the future. So just wanted to highlight those few items. In terms of commercial opportunities at 3.8, Council is considering, as part of our corporate plan, whether some of the assets that we hold should be moved into the commercial provisions of the local government regulations. What that would mean is that we would then have to go through a process of treating them as business enterprises. And what this is really saying is that that would not be undertaken unless there was sound business case analysis done. So we wouldn't be going down that path. And of course, that would mean that there's whole of life costings associated with any of those commercial enterprises. So it is a thorough document. It addresses a number of issues, and I would like to thank Mr. CEO and the finance team, General Manager Jarvis, for bringing this policy forward. Okay, with those closing comments, I'll now go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 10.4, Council's procurement policy at 109, where we have a recommendation from the committee that South Bennett Regional Council procurement policy, statutory 007 as presented be adopted. We might just take as presented, statutory 007 be adopted as presented. Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Jones. Speakers, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's actually just a couple of questions, probably to Manager Reedy. So with regards to the procurement policy, I just need to make sure that this is timely, because I know there's been a couple of instances where we've received quotes or tenders, but because they've come back to council and it's been too long since we've gone back to between the council meeting, the tenders coming in, council meeting, we've gone back, the actual quote or tender is out of date. So is this, I just want to make sure that this is timely, because in that event, it does affect our bottom line. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In Council's invitation to offer documents or tender documents, we have a grace period of 90 days, whereby the supplier is obligated to maintain that price. Due to serious market fluctuations over the last couple of years and rise and fall, unfortunately, some of those prices aren't able to be maintained. We have a number of legislative exceptions as written in the local government regulation, which we can apply to expedite that procurement process, depending on what our intent is with our market approach. So it depends on what the end result is as to how we intend to approach the market to get the best outcome for council.
Thank you. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question on the exemptions. I did raise this back in December about the fact that some of these exemptions don't seem to come to council. Like, is the local buy, where it's an exemption, it's in the section on page 121, does it come to council? Like, is it a decision of council, or can some of these contracts be done without, just because it's an exemption, or does it have to come to council?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Local buy arrangements are compliant with the Local Government Regulation and Local Government Act, as they are a subsidiary organisation that have been established under the LGAQ. The exceptions in the legislation have been developed through the Local Government Regulation to be able to expedite those procurement processes for councils. As Councillor Potter mentioned before, sometimes that time frame can actually impede our procurement process and impede our deliverables and our service requirements to the community. We have a number of obligations and contractual obligations with other government departments such as DTMR, QRA, whatever some of our requirements may be under grant funding, whereby an approval process through council may inhibit that process because of that lengthy time frame. By the time we were to tender and put it through each monthly council meeting and then have it accepted by the following month, may very well affect our service requirements moving forward. I do have your question on notice from the December council meeting, of which I'll provide a formal response to.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not happy with this policy, because I believe that when we've got big ticket items, like for example when we engaged Red Frost, I found out secondhand by somebody in Mergen that because they were doing a job there that was actually Red Frost was doing all of our flood stuff. That was a huge ticket item. I think that councillors need to be across all of that, and there seems to be a lot of that kind of big ticket stuff that's going outside this council chamber, and whether it can be, the decision can be made and then it can be brought back as in confidential or something. But I think that we need to be right across what's happening with our flood damage, with all of these big contracts that where we're engaging people. I think that that needs to happen. So I'm not going to support this current procurement policy unless that, however you like to word it or however it happens, we need to know what's going on with those big players in our region. That's my belief. So just wanted to flag that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Lou, and your team for the policy and the work that you've done on this. I know since we started council, there's been a lot of work. I had a question in relation to page 118, 3.9.1, repeated operational expenditure. And my question goes to, in some instances, now I know when we use a consultant for a job, that they might be given a package of work and then they're given another package of work and another package of work. And as per this policy, the CEO, the management, the CEO has delegation to approve up to $200,000 worth of contractual arrangements. My concern is if we're doing a number of packages of work, they add up over time. And I guess my question to you is, as a procurement specialist, how are we actually determining that we're getting value for those repeated operational expenses? Because while we might, sign a contract for 20,000, 30,000, 100,000, over time they add up. So I would like to understand from your perspective how we actually evaluate the performance of those contracts in those instances.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The definition of repeated operational expenditure is very different to our engagement of contractors of those services. So the repeated operational expenditure exception is for the application of utilities, licences, memberships, things that are services or more so services than goods that can't be procured in the traditional procurement methodology. So you mentioned contractors or engineers. All of those go through different procurement processes than what ROE is.
So I mean, like a consultant as such, is it providing a service to council through their consultancy arrangement to deliver a specific outcome. That's how I read the definition here in the policy.
Yeah, so ROE are actually adopted by council, so we actually have a separate register of what our suppliers are for repeated operational expenditure, and it comes through council. It's needs to be adopted in the near future as we recognise those suppliers and we put them on the ROE.
I can probably answer the councillor's question. I think you're probably talking about still wanting the intent, council, the answer of how we benchmark the contractors. So if we go out for a consultant engineer, we'll go to the local buy panel. We use the local buy panels where we don't have a council panel, where it's not economical for us to do that. So, you know, we've got limited engineering supplies in the South Burnett. So we'll go to the local buy panel and go to the panel, and what we'll do is we'll put out for an engagement, which we'll ask for. We'll have a criteria behind the assessment of those contractors, which is similar to what we have in a tender. So we'll look at their qualifications, experience, value for money, all of those sound contract principles. And then what we will do is we will give them an engagement for a period of time based on the volume of work that's through there. At the time, depending on the engagement, where we believe that we'll have a continuation of, say, capital works projects, we will go to the entire panel at that time and give them a period of time where we might say we want someone for 3 months with an option of a 3-month extension. So that way we're doing a value for money assessment through that. What we'll also do, the example you gave where we might go to the CEO and say we wish to extend for an order, what we will do is we will have a look at, we might have went for another engineer or something like that. We'll look at the submission that we were given for those engineers as well. So that way we can see whether our unit rate would be comparable to what we would have done if we've gone through that. And the other thing is that we'll consider too, is some of those extensions will be made because it's in the best interest of council to continue with that contractor. Particularly in the current market, it is very, very difficult to get that. I will highlight to council, we have engaged some consultants and we have concluded their employment earlier, because it's no different from a market service that they're not reaching what we believe, and those steps are taken through. So we try to take a pragmatic approach, if that makes sense, and so that we're getting the best outcome. But we do monitor very carefully that we're getting value for what we serve, because we have a very busy workload, so we wish for them to do well.
Be delivering on that, absolutely, and that was the purpose of my question. I sort of read over this and I thought there are so many different people that council will engage from time to time. I was trying to understand how we actually do a measurement or assessment to make sure that we are getting value for money when we engage those people. So it's good to know we've got that in place. The other one I just had, just in relation to the local buy preference, I understand, I'm just not sure, page 118, that I agree with the provision around just purely being price variance when we engage a local contractor. I know they're a local supplier, or make a decision for council to purchase a piece of equipment or an item that might be above what a business outside of town may be able to sell that to us. In the past, I've not just made that decision based on the fact that that's a local supplier putting forward that request. I've actually made that decision based on your principles, which talk to building the local development of competitive local business and industry. And so I thought that should possibly be acknowledged there on page 118, that yes, while price is certainly a point in terms of the decisions council make in delivering value for the people of the region, it's also about, you know, developing that competitive local business and industry. So my only suggestion and amendment for the policy on page 117 relating to the evaluation, that in addition to the price variances there, that we add that council, you know, may make a decision, that a key reason why council may make a decision is around the development of that competitive local business and industry, not just price. Yeah, a non-price criterion specific element. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Your feedback on that, Mr. CEO or manager, is that something that we could incorporate?
Through you, Mr Mayor, just to understand Councillor Schumacher, I do believe the statement says this will allow council to ensure it is achieving its value for money objective, also that is supporting its development of competitive local business objective. Where the local content is applied to a non-price criterion as a specific element, it will be applied as per the table and the definition of clause 3.7 local preference. So just, would you mind clarifying exactly?
I just want that circled here and said, not sure I understand this. So I think there's just a lot of words in there where the local content is applied to a non-price criterion as a specific element, it will be applied as per the table and the definition of the clause. So you're saying, is that speaking to what I'm speaking to in relation to the fact that if a decision of council is made about a procurement that is beyond what the officer's recommendation is, and they've made that decision, the price is beyond, the price variance may very well be beyond the 10 or 5%, but the reason why council has made that decision is because you're building that local capacity, that is relevant. Has that been captured here? Sorry.
So that's where clause 3.7 local preference will be applied in addition to 3.8 in regards to the evaluation and the price criteria.
Okay.
So councillor, just we try to give both normally, so we'll give a local weight. We have to have some rules, I suppose, for a tender. From ours, if it's not an open tender, we will normally give a local preference, and then we will still apply the price criteria on the value for money thing. So now, if we're not doing that consistently, that wouldn't worry us to put that into our docs.
I understand that. I'm talking about the evaluation when council actually gets the report back here in the chamber to decide on a procurement that's above $200,000, and we decide to give that contract to a local provider who may have actually quoted more than somebody from out of town, and they've quoted more than the 10 or the 5%. But the reason why we've made that decision as a council is because, as per the sound guiding principles of this policy, we've made that decision because we're committed to building the capacity of our local businesses. And I know firsthand that we have made decisions like that in this chamber where price really hasn't been a metric for the decision. The decision, yes, it played a role, but the decision did also, a large reason why it was made was because we're building that capability of local business.
So what if we propose whereby it says we make a documented decision to purchase for 10%, 5%, and then a third dot point, all by council resolution?
By council resolution
for business development.
For business development, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Because there are instances when that does happen and the price may only just be slightly different. Thank you. If that amendment's made, I'm supporting the policy.
Okay. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of things with regards to what Councillor Duff said earlier about that local buy being brought back to council. Just to clarify through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Duff, is that what you're looking for? You want, if we do use local buy, you want that brought back to us just to let us know what they're doing?
Yep, so I've got an
Yep.
amendment.
So can that be added? I'll leave it up to Councillor Duff now, thank you.
Okay, well, in response to your question, Councillor Duff, Councillor Potter's opened the floor for you to propose
Yes, thank you.
change to the policy.
So I'd like to add that all procurement transactions in the exemptions category
Just hold time.
be brought back to council as a report within 2 months of the arrangements being put in place.
Okay. I might just speak to that, Councillor Duff, if I could, before we take that as an amendment. What you're really talking about perhaps is changing the policy as such. On page 119, the second bullet point states, and this is in relation to purchases over 200,000, reports must be presented to council at the earliest opportunity for resolution to approve the unapproved expenditure. So, Louise, does that not already pick up what Councillor Duff is intending? Page 119 at the top, second bullet point. Reports must be presented to council at the earliest opportunity for resolution to approve. Oh, sorry, that
That's a
doesn't
separate
relate
exception.
to those. So if we were to put a clause such as that in under 3.6.4, would that, from a technical point of view, Manager, address Councillor Duff's concerns? So if we go to page 116 at the bottom, 3.6.4.
For purchases 200,000 and above.
Yeah.
So we already report on that in accordance with the Local Government Act by our contracts engaged into over $200,000 and above, whether that be a public tender or through the pre-qualified arrangements.
And does that include local buy arrangements?
Yes, it does.
They come back to council for approval?
It doesn't, no, it doesn't come back to council for approval. It's a reporting requirement as outlined in the Act whereby we have to publish all contractual arrangements over $200,000, by which we do via the website and in the council foyer.
So how are they reported to council?
On the website.
On the website. So councils have to go on the website. Yep. So that doesn't come back to council. I don't think that addresses Councillor Duff's issue.
Not in a formal report, no.
No, okay. So what I'm wondering is, so my question is, and I'll ask it again, at the top of page 119, the second bullet point says, reports must be presented to council at the earliest opportunity for resolution to approve the unapproved expenditure. So that where we have cases where you have to rush in and engage a company like Red Frost quickly, you do so, but a report then comes back to council to endorse such, which effectively then puts the same provision in place for purchases over 200,000 that would currently apply to emergency purchases. Mr. CEO?
Just a point of clarification. So the local buy procurement through the exemptions are already done in accordance with the adopted budget. So just thinking of the wording of that, they would not be an unauthorised expenditure. They're budgeted for. It's just a different procurement process than going to a quote or if we go out to a panel. So yeah, I just don't know that you could use unauthorised expenditure.
Yes, good point, Mr. CEO. Thank you. So if we were to...
Councillor, Mayor, if I may, I'm just again, so Councillor Duff's asking for a report, so it could even not be separate, just thinking out loud, Mayor, to a policy. Councillor Duff's asking for, rather than 2 months, a quarterly report on all, just listing the companies that have been procured through tender or exemption processes. So it's a list of companies. So the same stuff we put on the website, but just in a report with quarterly reviews. Is that, have I got that?
If I could just, I think we need to clarify that. Councillor Duff, are you seeking to have purchases over 200,000 that are entered into through arrangements that are stated on page 116 under established arrangements at the bottom of the table? So it talks about local buy, etc. Are you talking about saying that they should be approved by council because they're over 200,000, or that you simply want to know about them and have them reported after the event?
Well, I think that from what Louise is saying, that we can't actually, because of the local government act, we're not involved in because of the time frames, we can't make those decisions, but it's just at the very least that we know that those decisions have been made. Yes.
So would you be happy if that comes back as a quarterly report?
Well, yes, Mr. Mayor, I think if that, as long as it's coming through this chamber and we're made aware of it, because, like I say, we're finding it out second, third hand, or if we happen to be on the website. But I think it's not appropriate when it's big ticket items that needs to come through this chamber. So
it needs to come through this chamber for approval, or to be reported after the event 3 months later?
I don't think we have the ability to do
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if the regulation says that purchases over 200,000 cannot be seek endorsement of council. I'm happy to stand corrected if the regulation prohibits us from having a say on purchases over 200,000 where they are entered into under a local buy arrangement. If there is a clause in the regulation, I'd like to know about it.
Through Mr. Mayor, just on the first part of that, if you won't be able to, I don't believe you won't be able to enter into a contract and then seek a subsequent approval afterwards. So if you bring that approval forward, that means every purchase would be held until such time it's been approved by council. So just want to clarify that for council. You can't enter into a contract with SBA for a stabiliser and then come back a month later and say, oh, I want approval. If you've entered into a contract, you've entered into a contract. So that's a trade for that from an operating point of view. That would be an impact to us. You would move away from.
So if that's the case, then let's just keep working through this. At the top 119, reports must be presented to council at the earliest opportunity for resolution to approve unapproved expenditure. So really, that then needs to be corrected, doesn't it?
Through Mr. Mayor,
Because that's doing exactly what you're saying we can't do.
No, Mr. Mayor, apologies. What I'm saying is the use of unapproved expenditure is if we go and do capital work, so such as the sewer relining program that we had, the expenditure that we would use for local buy arrangements is the delivery of approved capital and operational budgets. So those budgets have been approved. So where the example was where we had a genuine emergency, if we had a sewer that was collapsed or whatever, where we haven't got an approved budget item for that, we would return to council at the early, and we have used that clause previously, I believe.
Well, I guess what you're saying though is you just said we can't enter into a contract and then come to council later and seek approval.
Yeah.
But that's saying that you can for emergency circumstances.
Yes. So my understanding, Mr.
I
Mayor.
just think that wording needs to be
Sure.
clarified there.
Yeah, I'm happy to hand to Mark, but our understanding is the idea of that point is to give a clause that the council, the executive, or might take action in an emergency that meets that obligation, and then it's endorsed by council to allow the safe and well-being. So that's
So perhaps we were just to say for resolution to endorse the unapproved expenditure rather than approve, because you can't really approve. You can't award a contract on unapproved expenditure. Yep. That to me doesn't make sense. So perhaps to endorse rather than approve.
Fair point, Mr.
I think that fixes it, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Coming back to Councillor Duff's point then, which relates to local buy arrangements, I guess the question is, does the regulation, the local government regulation, prohibit councils from requiring approval by the chamber before a purchase in excess of $200,000 can be entered into under local buy? Are we locked out of that process or not, you know?
That's a delegation to the CEO.
And where does that delegation come from?
Council and the financial delegation register.
I can succinctly, no, the regulation doesn't stop council approving every contract over 200 or 250 or value. To my end, I'm happy to check, but through my history of LG, there is no reason to. The reason, and if I may, that exemption is put in there is expedience and operations. So there's a delegation made, a budget's approved, and assessment of best procurement. But yeah, short answer to answer your question without going elsewhere, yeah, council could by resolution approve every expenditure over 200 or 250,000, whatever threshold it's set. But I think the threshold in the Act is 200 or 250, 200 plus GST. Yeah.
So, Mr. CEO, if we had a case here, it's important we get to the bottom of this, because Councillor Duff is of the view that we can't approve purchases over 200,000 as a council if they've been signed up through local buy. But that's not the case. There's nothing in the regulation, Councillor Duff, it would seem, that stops us from still saying, even if it is local buy, you've still got to come back to council first. Okay. Now, the reason I think this is important is that if local buy says that there's a supplier from out of the South Burnett, from Toowoomba or Brisbane or somewhere, that can provide that service, so then the staff go and sign up that company, but there's a local company here that could have done it, but weren't given the opportunity to tender because they're not, or they're not on local buy. Under those circumstances, would it not be the right thing to do to have that come back to council, and council can then ask the question, well, is there anyone locally that could have done this contract over $200,000, albeit that they're not on local buy? I think we should consider that as a council, because I think it goes to the issue that Councillor Shoemaker raised about supporting business development. So I'm keen to get some feedback on that, because I think it does very much address your point, doesn't it, about these things coming back to council. They are big contracts. Yeah. And Mr. CEO? response to that? Could we, if council, I'm not saying council wants to, but if council did have appetite, could we include a clause under section 3.6.4 that says purchases over $200,000, including from established arrangements, must come back to council for approval?
In accordance with 3.9 exceptions outlined in the Act and the regulation, in accordance with our policy, council representatives that are responsible for purchasing goods or services are required to adhere to the purchasing thresholds and the quotation requirements set out in the table under 3.6.3, whereby an evaluation criteria would be set. When we are engaging through the local buyer contracts in accordance with policy, any local contractors that are available that can provide those goods or services are provided the opportunity to quote on those goods or services through our own established pre-qualified supplier arrangements and the local buyer arrangements as well. So they're provided each opportunity to be able to quote on those goods or services.
So if there was a local buy arrangement in place, you would still give the local suppliers opportunity to quote, but that would not come back to council. So we would not have the opportunity to then say, oh, well, the local's a little bit more expensive, but we want to give it to them because we want to develop local business. So I think I'm not going to the issue of opportunity to quote necessarily. I'm going to the issue of council's right to say, well, no, we want to give this contract to a local, even though they might be a little bit dearer, because we believe we'd like to support local business. And that might override a local buy arrangement by resolution of council.
So the application of the exception is section 234, section 232 and section 233, whereby we're actually tendering or quoting through already pre-established arrangements. So whether it be 32 or 34, that application of the exception is applied to both the local buy contractual arrangements and council's pre-qualified supplier arrangements as well. If there is a supplier that is not on our pre-qualified supply arrangements or not on the local buy arrangements, then no, they don't get provided the opportunity to tender unless it is a public tender, which is a 21-day process and then needs to go through council for resolution. The intent of the application of the exceptions in the legislation is to expedite that procurement process.
Yes, thank you. So that's the intent, and I understand that's the intent, and obviously, it needs to be there for good reason, but that intent could indeed undermine our ability to support local business, because in trying to expedite the process, what we might actually do then is award a contract to someone out of town, or may not give a local the opportunity to put their case forward on a big contract that could be over $200,000. That concerns me, knowing that we are in a regional community with a low socioeconomic index, our businesses are struggling. I would be really, really concerned if there were locals that could do work over $200,000 for a big contract, and we as a council don't know that they missed out on getting the contract without us being given an opportunity to debate it and consider it. And I'd like to see us consider that as part of a change to this policy under 3.6.4 to include a statement that says that all purchases, including those proposed under established arrangements, are to be approved by resolution of council under 3.6.4, which then basically only applies to those that are over 200,000.
What page is that?
Page 116. So I'd be proposing that at 3.6.4 we insert there, we insert a clause that says that all purchases, including those under established arrangements as referred to in the purchasing threshold table, are to be approved by resolution of council. Having done that, we have some changes here, including Councillor Shoemaker's change, and also the change that I've proposed, that would then mean that we'd have to change the resolution to be adopted as amended. I hereby move an amendment to the resolution that it be adopted as amended. Full stop. And seek a seconder. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff. I believe the suggestion that Councillor Shoemaker put forward, and the suggestion I put forward, goes to supporting local business, and I understand that there are timely issues around this, but if there's a major contract that's really important to push through, there's no reason why we can't call a special meeting of council. That can be done under our policy by 3 councillors or by the mayor, and it may mean that we've got to come in here and sit for an hour under a special meeting to approve something that the staff need pushed through quickly. Now, that special meeting can normally, subject to resourcing in our exec services, can normally be organised within a week to 10 days, probably, Mr. CEO, to be fair to the staff. But that could be done if it was urgent that we had to push a case through. So I think there's a case for doing this to support our local business, and I'd commend it to the council on that basis. Further speakers on the amendment? Councillor Erkins?
I've actually had my light on before that amendment came up, through you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, well,
I'm just a little confused. We seem to be speaking, first of all, on everything, and then on local things. And I mean, I agree that I would like to be aware of what contracts are where, so if it come back to council. But, I mean, surely we employ staff to be doing this stuff. Are we going to be standing over them and addressing everything that they do? The same with the local. I'm a big supporter of supporting local business. And I am sure if staff have to come back and report back to council what they've done, if they've got good reasons for going out of town, I'm sure, and if we find that it wasn't a good reason and it's discussed at a meeting, I'm sure next time there'll be more thought given to where it goes. But as I said, with supporting locals still have to be competitive, and to say that, we want to support them because it promotes business and makes them more competitive, that's all very well. But we're spending money of our ratepayers and they still have to be competitive, So I understand and I agree completely with what Kathy said. When you guys are, if we drive along and we see something happening, it would be nice if someone says, oh, I've seen Joe blogs, whatever, that we can say, oh yes, we knew about that, they're doing such and such. I mean, the role of councillors that I see is we have setting policies is all very well, but we also have a whole community who come to us complaining and wanting answers to questions. So if we've got those answers, it makes us better equipped to be able to justify or explain to our constituents why council as a whole are doing something. So as I said, we seem to be talking here about 2 different things. Let's sort of bring it down to discuss one and make a decision on that and then go on to the next one. Are we talking about everything that's bought, or are we talking about the locals, or are we talking about them in separate things? Can we just establish that and get it sorted?
I'll address that in my closing remarks. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Well said, Councillor Erkins. I certainly won't be supporting the amendment, and I just want to say that I'm all for local buy, but Councillor Shoemaker referred to, I'm pretty sure that I know exactly the contract that she may have been referring to, and local buy is great to grow capacity and all that sort of stuff, all for that, but there's a statement in here that I think is critical to this whole document. Council representatives are encouraged to ensure they are testing the market effectively and ensuring council is achieving true value for money outcomes. So where practical, in addition to local quotations sought, there should always be one from outside the region. Now you go back to local buy and you say, Mr Mayor, that we could be squandering an opportunity for a local business to have the tender because they're not on local buy. I don't know how much money and how much time our staff and councillors have spent promoting the fact that local buy, get on local buy and you will be able to do this and you can tender and you'll get all that. Councillor Erkins is right. Our local businesses have to come to the game too. They have to do their bit. If they want to be able to contract and all that sort of stuff, if it's good enough for some of our businesses, why isn't it good enough for everybody that wishes to tender? Why should they have the right to sit back, watch a tender unfold and then say all of a sudden, oh, I could have tendered on that, went to one of our councillors and all that sort of stuff? They have to be competitive. We have a right and an obligation to our constituents to be fair and equitable and all that sort of stuff and make decisions on how we spend our money. So the other thing, every decision that comes back to council, I sit in this chamber and I hear comments about our staff not getting out there to do stuff. There's things not getting done. I can see this grinding our organisation to a halt. Councillor Erkins makes a good point. Have faith in your staff. They're not going to do something, and as you know, with Councillor Duff's point and the conversation around that, we can bring a report back and get the financials given to us. You know, most of the time, it's all to do with disasters, natural disasters. Red Frost was mentioned, all that sort of stuff. I can't see the benefit in bringing everything. And I understand what you're saying, but everything, we've got to move on. We've got to get things happening. And I just can't see any reason why, we've got a CEO, we've got general managers with finance and all that. I can't see them making a decision where they know they're going to get smacked over the head for making a poor decision where we can see financially it's absolutely wrong for our people. I don't think our staff, in the environment they're working in, I'm sure they know exactly what's warranted for them. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I won't be supporting that. I'm happy with the original recommendation. I won't be supporting the amendment.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've gotten off track. I was talking about the price metrics here, you know, and Councillor Jones is right. It's our role as councillors to ensure that we are getting best value for the ratepayer at the end of the day. What I'm referring to is more what my question related to, or what I would like to better understand. And I've pulled up the contracts over $200,000. You can download it from the webpage. It's all reported, open and transparent for the community to see. My question is more about determining value for money when we are buying, when we don't intend to spend $200,000 on a specific contract or consultant, for instance, or a contract that might involve engaging a consultant, but we do. And that happens because over a period of time, as General Manager Meehan explained, circumstances change and that contract continues to get extended. And my concern is more about the fact that rather than having a tender process where we'd actually go through and actually make sure, because we are spending over $200,000, that we are getting value for money, I wanted the assurity that that sort of evaluation, or there's something in the system that still triggers that. I absolutely do agree that we have to, you know, our staff are employed to do a job. My concern about the amendment, and that we need to trust them to do that job and certainly hold them accountable, but my concern about the amendment that you've put forward is that table, and if we could just get the wording for that amendment back up. I'm just trying to understand, the purchasing threshold table talks about all purchases from $0 to all purchases over $200,000. And council has made the agreed stance that, you know, we have a public tender for anything over $200,000. I guess my thinking and reason for the questions were around those medium-sized contracts that probably eventually collectively get up over that $200,000 point. But if we were to actually assess every single procurement that comes
Oh, look, I think we're getting... Sorry, can I just interject?
I'm confused.
Oh, look, what I said was in relation to established arrangements. So at the bottom of the table, there's an asterisk, and it talks about established arrangements. So the wording of this goes to established arrangements that are over 200,000, because 3.6.4 only applies to purchases over 200,000. So when I say that that 3.6.4 include a provision that refers to the table where the table talks to established arrangements. Okay, so, and look, councillors, you know, we're here saying that the staff have good reason behind every decision. We're here saying that, you know, why should we be sticking our nose into every decision? Councillor Erkins, Councillor Jones, I'm not suggesting that. This is only for purchases over 200,000.
So it needs to reflect, it says that all purchases.
No, it refers to 3.6.4, which only relates to purchases over 200,000.
Oh, I see. So to be clear, that all purchases, including under established purchases, are as referred to in the purchasing threshold table, are to be approved by resolution. So if there was a local buy, one local buy contract or state government contract or preferred contractor that came forward that was over the $200,000 recorded here, you're simply suggesting that that has to come back to council for approval?
Yes.
Over the 200,000?
Yep.
Okay, I'm supportive.
Is it just for a local?
It's under what we call
Local.
established arrangements, which is at the bottom there of the table. So that's local buy, state government contracts and existing council administered contracts. So that's not to say that we'll override state government contracts, for example. The report might simply say you can't override this. It's simply for your information. But if there is the capacity to override it because it was done under local buy and it's over 200,000, and let's remember the case of an electrical supply here where we had a big contract, I think it was for 900,000 or something, and the recommendation from the staff was to give it to a company in Brisbane. But we resolved as a council that we'd give it to a local electrician. Yes, they were a little bit dearer, not much, but a little bit dearer, and we fought for that as a council. And look at the work it created for apprentice electricians in town. That would have gone to contractors from Brisbane. And I know some people said, oh, that wasn't financially irresponsible. I'm very comfortable with that decision because we kept people employed in our local economy. And the multiplier, I'm told by economists, is 8 times every dollar you spend. Why wouldn't we support big contracts over 200,000 staying local? And that's all I'm asking us to do, is to have a look as a council at what the staff are recommending. And if there's a local, let's at least give them, as their council, let's at least have the opportunity to consider it.
Just with the local buy register though, that is a local government statewide register, isn't it? So it's not just to be clear, it's not just local people who are registered on there. As some of our councillors have said, we've tried to actually get more local business to register there because there are opportunities across the state. Okay, so you're suggesting, all right, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you for the clarity. We got a little off track there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to point out to some people that we've talked about local buy, and especially some of the people listening may think local buy is actually council buying local, but it's actually the register that the local government association we use in conjunction with them. So the other part we're talking about is actually buying local, so as opposed to local buy. So I just wanted to make that that difference there to make sure people realise that was there. And look, I do trust our staff, and I just think that whenever we use local buy, a report back to council, like you put on the website, just bring it back to the next council meeting is the one that I'd be quite happy with. I'm just not too sure about the changes in this particular one. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Me?
What was that, Councillor Duff? You had an opportunity to speak to us, no?
Thank you. I support the amendment because I think that if it's over $200,000, that it should be brought back to council for a decision because, and as the Mayor said, if we need to have a special meeting, because these are big ticket items. And like on this agenda here, we've got the systematic inspection program for dogs, and council's making that decision. So why wouldn't we want to be part of those decisions, whether we're going to get Red Frost or some other company? Like these are decisions that councillors should be part of. I'm very, very supportive of this, and this is why I said I wouldn't support the procurement document unless it was amended. And I didn't know that we actually had the right to have a say in it, and I think we need to have a say in it. I think we need to be part of it. and it's actually team building if the staff, because there's a lot of perception out there that, you know, councillors are not being included in a lot of decisions. Well, this helps to make us all a team, and and particularly as these are big ticket items, so I'm very, very supportive of the amendment.
So before we go to the vote, does any, Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, sat and listened for a long time. With all due respect, Mr Mayor, in relation to the contract where we debated in this chamber for a long time, and yes, councillors have been smashed about, and I'm fully supportive of local buy. Certainly am. Passionate about it. Sorry? Yeah, you know what I mean. But when we go back out into our ratepayers come to me and say that that was an irresponsible decision when it wasn't 5%, it wasn't 10%, and it was more to support local, they're the people that are paying for it. It goes the other way as well. When we can sit here in a chamber and get local buy, local contractors put in for tenders here, and we've seen it, we've had a couple put in, and one is X and one is Y, some 3 and 4 times in our own local community that they're doing. To some people, they say they're just getting on the back of the cash cow and it's a milking cow. Well, we have to be very responsible in the decisions we make here. And that's a tough call, because that 5 or 10% or 15 or 20% could be spent and utilised somewhere else, much more beneficial than perhaps just supporting a local company when we find out later that they've gone and subcontracted that out to a company outside of our region anyway. And they haven't had the facility or the personnel to be able to complete that job. And that's happening. And I'm not knocking that, but that is happening. That is fact of the matter. So this is a seriously curly one, and I appreciate the work the staff do here. It's interesting. When we sit down and this comes across our table and we have local companies, and they have the ability to tender or to put in for these contracts. They really do. And if they don't, is that our fault? That's not our fault. They're given every opportunity to go on our list of contractors. So fully supportive, Mr Mayor, of trying to engage local contractors and get it out there further, but it is up, as Councillor Jones alluded to, it is up to those local companies to come on board as well. At the moment, I'm struggling to support these amendments to this. I think the policy in place, and we look at the matrix, and I noticed there's no percentages. Previously, when we've sat in this, there's contractual arrangements up to certain amounts, and as Councillor Shoemaker's alluded to, from $0 right up to over $200,000, and the matrix was from 0 to 5% up to 10%. I don't believe we had any arrangements that accepted tenders, or we had the ability to accept tenders over 10%, over and above 10%. I think if we're engaging local to support local, there has to be a line in the sand where we appreciate our ratepayers and be diligent in where we draw that line to be able to accept local tenders, and local companies and businesses fully supportive. But it's frustrating when we give it to a company and they go out and get outside subcontractors in and still can't service that to the agreed amount, because I think we all are aware that things in this environment we're in and the costings of everything, it just blows out of the water. So all of a sudden 5 and 10% can quite easily become 20%, if not more. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, a
Just,
question?
Look, yes.
Quick question,
Yeah.
Councillor
So
Evans.
I'm just looking for some clarification on it. So coming back to what Councillor Potter said about local buy and buying local. So here we're talking about everything, but buying local buy, and every contract that's given out by council, we want it to come back to
Over 200,000.
over 200,000. Okay. So can you just tell me what sort of time restraints is that actually going to be? Because everybody knows the wheels of local government grind exceedingly slow. You know, is this going to make it, how much slower is this going to make it for, and you know, I do think that there are lots of times, so it actually will mean that we all share the blame when a contract goes over budget, not just the staff. We're going to be sharing we'll share the glory and the blame. But how much will that add to time? Because that's also one of the things, and I don't want to say that's the most important, but I am coming around to that.
Thanks,
way of
Councillor.
thinking.
I might address that in my closing remarks, and I will wrap up now. Any want clarification on the amendment? Any clarification on the amendment questions? No?
I I just have one quick question that's as beneficial, I'm sure, to the chamber, Mr Mayor, if you don't mind. Thank you. Just in relation to this, what numbers would we be looking at, contractual-wise, to come back in these chambers if we were to do this over 200,000? What are we talking, the workload?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, for me, it would be a substantial impact to us. Basically, any resheet, reseal, flood damage package over 200,000 would have to be held and come back to the chamber before we proceed. So, any works for main roads as well would have to come back to chamber above that value.
Okay, look, just to wrap up, address some of the issues and questions raised. Again, look, I understand there are two trains of thought here. I think to address Councillor Erkin's issue around the timing of this, it could push it back by, I guess, a month. So, for example, we have an ordinary meeting at the end of on the fourth Wednesday of each month, and let's say, you know, the staff wanted to enter into a contract, you know, a day or two after the previous meeting, then they could be held up by up to 30, 31 days for the next council meeting. However, if there was an emergency situation such as disaster repairs to be undertaken, as I said, there is provision in our standing orders to call a special meeting of council to resolve the matter, which can normally be done, as I said, within a week or so, roughly, if it was that urgent to do so. Look, I just am concerned that there are those purchases over 200,000 that could stay locally. I absolutely would want us to see us get as many people on local buy from within the local community. I think that'd help and make it easier if they would. But there may be cases where even a local buy, registered local business doesn't get the job. And I would like to see that come back to council to consider, as we did for that job for that electrical company. You know, we overrode, we actually made a decision which was against the recommendation of the staff because we believed, as a majority of councillors, that had benefit for our community. And all I'm wanting to do here is to give the council that right and responsibility on behalf of the community to at least do that assessment. We may choose not to, but at least have the right to at least consider it, if nothing more. I'll leave it at that. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour of the amendment? Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Duff, Councillor Otto. Those against? Councillor Erkins, Jones, Potter and Henson. The amendment has been defeated, so we'll revert back to the original motion, which was to adopt it as presented. Just let your light, Councillor.
Could we change in that approved to, what was the other word you used before that, where you, I said it to Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Singh.
Mayor, this is, and given the nature of the debate and the complexity of some of these issues, this is this policy was running a little bit late because it would have been probably in the first half of this year. It will be coming back to council again for the budget in June. So we've got the budget committee workshops, and given we've just had that debate and the result of the amendment, there's probably a fair broad range because, and again, I didn't want to participate and influence the debate, but my mind immediately went to council panels as for an example. So does a council panel go through a process twice? So there is a degree of complexity in this, and so if the policy goes through today as is, it's pretty much business as usual, what we've already been doing for the first half of this financial year. And then we put it as a specific topic on a budget standing committee, and then council can really have a good old chin wag, to use a colloquialism. Anyway, it's just a thought, Mayor.
We'll stay with you, Councillor Erkins.
Yes, rather than adopted, be approved. I'm just not sure what the word was that sorry? Yeah, endorsed, sorry, yeah. So rather than they come back for approval, because, for example, I have recently had an issue where council were working on a road, and through some of the works that we're doing further up the road, it caused, you know, a very dangerous section of road that they had to go out and do works on. And I'm sure that work would have been more than $200,000. And even to hold a special meeting to do that, that was dangerous. That needed fixing that night, you know, to come back and ask a group of councillors who really, you know, with all due respect to my fellow
Yeah,
councillors.
sorry, councillor. I think we are, if we're going to debate, let's get a motion to debate. So at the moment, we're on the original
I'm
motion.
asking whether that word could be changed from adopted to whatever the other word was you said.
Oh,
Endorsed.
yeah, I wouldn't change the resolution, Kimberley.
Well, if we're going to be going over it again,
I think our CEO has recommended that we
said.
reconsider it as part of our budget standing committee. We will have more time to discuss it. Okay. Does anyone want? So we're with the original motion now. Okay. Any further speakers before we go to the vote on that?
yeah.
Okay. Let's wrap this up, Councillor Erkin.
So are we still going to be informed? We're still getting a report come back to us telling us when over $200,000, that's going to come back to council as a report.
So I'll answer the question. Under the current policy, that will be published on the website. So the policy doesn't provide for a report to come back to council, but we can consider that at the budget committee meeting in the future.
So can it be put into this now?
You'd have to propose that change and then move an amendment. It'd be adopted as amended.
Sorry?
Councillor?
I understand.
So the answer is yes, but you'd have to move that an amendment to the original motion.
Okay, I'd like to move an amendment that a report is brought back to councillors of expenditure or contracts over 200,000. Sorry?
Okay, let's keep this on.
The report that's on the website.
Can we keep this in line here? Okay, so the Councillor Erkins is putting forward a motion that be adopted as amended. Kimberley, be adopted as amended with the inclusion of a clause requiring that a report be brought to council on purchases $200,000 and above.
That's what you want to ask.
Just confirm, Councillor Erkins, does that... Feel free to change that if you want to. That's a proposal.
Version of the clause, the report, maybe the report that's now available on the website is actually presented at a council meeting. Yeah, at the meeting closest to when the decision was made. Yep, next meeting.
Okay, so we have that moved as an amendment to the motion. We have seconded. Councillor Schumacher. Councillor Erkins, feel free to speak to the motion.
No, I think we've sort of, I think we've gone over it, but I think that will keep everyone aware of what's happening and move forward.
Okay, further speakers to the amendment. Councillor Duff.
The amendment is better than not having that clause in there at all, but I'm still not happy that it doesn't go beyond us making that decision. But I will support it on the grounds that it's an improvement, but I'm still going to be fighting for it to actually, an opportunity for us to actually make those decisions. Thank you.
Further speakers? Okay. I feel the same. Look, I'll vote for this, but I will be fighting at future standing committee meetings to have all purchases over 200,000 come back to council, because I believe that that's what we should be doing as councillors. That's our role in representing our community. Okay, Councillor Erkins, anything to close? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. That now becomes a substantive motion. Further speakers in relation to that? Okay, we'll go to the vote on the substantive motion. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. I think we're long overdue for morning tea, so I'll move that we adjourn for morning tea, seconded by Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, welcome back all. Now move that we resume the meeting. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We're up to 10.5, the monthly financial report for December 22 at 1:26, where we have a recommendation that the monthly financial report, including capital works and works for Queensland, as at 31 December 22, be received and noted. We have a mover, Councillor Henson, seconded Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, certainly would like to congratulate the rates team. I can see they've got now debt ratio, a debt to be collected down to 7.79%, which is a miraculous effort. And I know there's been a lot of time, effort, blood, and possibly even some tears that have gone into that, and just really appreciate the team. They're often having very difficult conversations. Please pass on our thanks, Kerry. I know you've had many of those yourself. There's also over 1,007 rateable assessments with ratepayer arrangements in place. There's 1,007 arrangements that this council has made with people to be able to pay down their debt, which is an enormous number of arrangements with a small team. So thank you so much for your effort. I also wanted to congratulate the finance team and the procurement team. You will see in page 145 of the report that we are now actively tracking our monthly local spend, and that for this month, the month of December, we recorded 51.4% of council's local spend on local on accounts payable and items of such, which equated to $1.692 million spent locally, which is huge. We know those dollars go round and round in our community and our economy, and just so wonderful that we've now got that oversight, and appreciate that. My only question in relation to the report is the cash balance, and I know we've discussed the capital works program review in the next upcoming quarterly review. I'm really of the mindset we need to reduce that capital works program significantly and put the cash in the bank. I just wanted to understand, I've had a good look here, and our cash balance has shifted over this last quarter since our last report, and our cash ratio is actually sitting at 2.31, which I know is below the operating expenses of having 3 months of operating revenue in the bank. So just wanted to understand where we were sitting with cash, and I guess that future work to be done in terms of reviewing that CapEx program, what kind of input council can have to reducing that line of work or informing the way forward.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So with regards to the cash, while the ratio is not within the respective targets at the moment, it's just outside of it, it is still roughly where they normally are at this time of the year, where we're, at the end of the 6 months of the rating period. We've had some expenditure, so we are realistically on trend with what we would normally expect to see at that point in time. With regards to the capital expenditure, we are looking at that currently with the second quarter budget revision, and we have basically given direction that the managers are having a bit of a look at all their programs. Projects that doesn't look like they will get started during this year, we will be moving them out into next year's budget as part of the process. So we are predicting that we will bring the second quarter budget to the February budget committee meeting in the next couple of weeks. So council will be able to have a look at all the movements that the managers have proposed in that, and then it'll go through for the council meeting for adoption.
Further to that, I did notice we had a significant amount of money in works in progress that haven't actually been capitalised yet, and just wanted an update on that.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I know that the managers and the various departments are actually working on that at the moment. I've spoken with our asset accountant, and they have quite a lot of capitalisation information all coming through at the moment. So you will see that hopefully drop over the next month or so. We do have that comprehensive reval for the transport assets and that coming up. So we are trying to get as much, especially of that roads work in progress, capitalised where we can before we give that information out for that revaluation.
Fantastic. And once again, thank you to the incredible team. So much work here, and I know our report is the envy of many other councillors across the state. So the monthly financial report, so much information there. Thank you so much.
Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, on page 137 or page 8 of the actual financial report, in the top section, it's got donations, and I'm just curious as to, because it's got the original budget was 543,222 with the amended budget of 1.18,222. We're at the actual budget of 335,559, which is 33% of the spend. Just wondering what that donations, what falls under that, and are we expected to get to the amended budget? Thank you.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So that donations has a variety of different things in there. So some of that relates to from the rates. So donations from in there. There's also in there is the council the discretionary funding and things like that. So we should see that will get closer to that amended budget, but it will just depend on how much we put out.
So through you again, Mr. Mayor, so that includes the community grants and things like that. So that's all included in that. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Erkins.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to one of the comments just made by Councillor Shoemaker that she highlighted, the 1,007 ratepayers who have rate arrangements. And I think that that's something that we as a council really need to take notice of, because that's 1,007 ratepayers who are struggling. And that's, you know, that's those that are recorded so far, but I'm pretty sure you'll find that there are others out there struggling who have not yet come to the point where they have contacted council, because a lot of people have different reasons, they're embarrassed. And I'd just like to make special mention of the rate department, because yesterday I had a lady contact me. She was very distressed. She spoke to the rate department and they have come to an arrangement with her, and you know, she was just so thankful. She was like a lot of people, I think, who are struggling. You know, she had tried to she'd tried to forget it. She had actually taken out a loan to pay that payment, but what happened, she then she had to get new tyres on a car, and she had a car issue, so that money went on to that. And that we have a lot in our community who are struggling like that, and I just, want councillors to take notice of that. I know we're talking about charges, I know we're talking about, our budget coming up, and as I said, 1,007, that's a big percentage, and I'm sure there are a lot of other people who are also struggling. And one of the things where people may be able to make their rate payment in a community and as a council, people also have a right to live a life, not just be there paying their rates. They need to have some money left over to, go and have a night out or go and do something. So I really do want to draw that to my fellow councillors' attention. But thank you to the rates department.
General Manager.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. I really appreciate that, and I'll pass your thanks on. I already have done that. You contacted me yesterday, so I appreciate it. But just for Council's attention, I thought that I'd draw that our rates, our actual overdue rates, as Councillor Shoemaker said, is down to 7.79%, which is our benchmark is 7%. We've only gone back, thanks to Kerry, 7 years, but this is the lowest we've had in 7 years of outstanding rates. And I acknowledge my rates department, therefore we've actively pursued the overdue rates and with the sale of rates and arrears, but also we have put it out and engaged with the public to say, as Councillor Erkins was saying, that if people are in financial difficulties, the best they can do is contact us. We have a policy that Council has adopted where we can work with them to pay their rates off within that 2-year period while the rates are still being levied, or if they are in financial hardship, that Council has that compassionate policy, financial hardship, we deal with that all the time. So if I can just encourage any ratepayers that are struggling at the moment, we're here to help, and we're more than, we would love to hear from them and just help everybody that we can. So the worst thing that anyone could do is just, as Councillor Erkins said, just deny it and that because we don't want them getting that far in that has happened over the years where they just can't get out, and that's not doing anybody any favours. So I think that's a reflection in our debt collection that this is really working, and I just want to compliment the staff on what they've done to bring us to this point. So, and Council's support with these policies. So thank you.
Further speakers? Okay, looking forward to the February report, including the second quarter review, with a recommendation as to the revised budget for 22-23. Thank you, Kerry. Okay, that'll close the debate and we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 13.1, Systematic Inspection Program for Dog Registrations, which is at 170. And we have a recommendation there, which I will find, that Council approve a systematic inspection program for properties within the South Burnett Regional Council's jurisdiction in accordance with Section 113 of the Animal Management Cats and Dogs Act 2008 to monitor compliance with the requirements of the Animal Management Cats and Dogs Act of 2008, more specifically the requirement to register dogs. The systematic inspection program will be conducted between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m, Monday to Friday, commencing on 1 March 2023 and concluding on 30 June 2023. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, a second, Councillor Duff. Speakers? Councillor Elkins.
Sorry, guys. I know that we're going to be revisiting dog registrations in March. So is it possible to put that program, to hold that until we have our review on dog registrations?
Yeah, I believe that'll be revisited as part of the budget process with our fees and charges, but I guess we'd be guided by you, Mr. General Manager O'May. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so this program would basically be looking at this year's registration fees. So registration fees were due back in December. So this is looking at those outstanding ones that are outstanding now. So I'd be suggesting that we do need to continue with this. There's something like 1,000 dog registrations that are still not paid or something. So there is a substantial amount of people who haven't renewed their dog registrations. So I think if you're looking at the fees going forward, and remind Council, this is where you haven't done this for a number of years, and this is where we actually, because of the COVID, and this is where we had that substantial write-off of fees late last year because we weren't able to chase up those outstanding registration fees.
I understand that. I understand that completely. But there's a lot of feedback coming in from people about what we have charged. We're going to be, we've said we're going to revisit it. Really, what's the point in sending somebody out to enforce something where people are so negative and so against it, so concerned about the prices? That's why, presumably, I'm sure every councillor here has had feedback from their community on how much we're charging, and it is a big amount. So I just think if we're going to revisit it, if we're talking, what date in March are we going to be revisiting?
Oh, I just indicated earlier that it would be sometime around March, one of our budget committee meetings. There'll
If
be a
you're gonna
discussion
starting
around
the
this.
The inspections, if you've got 1,000 dogs that haven't been registered and you're sending somebody out and these people are going to be pretty cranky, you know, why stir up a hornet's nest? Let's revisit it and then start afresh.
Anything further, General Manager, in relation to that issue? So,
I know, I probably just have to respectfully disagree, Councillor Durkins.
you're very much entitled to, General Manager. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only question was, well, two questions. First question, it says in the report that it's proposed to send reminders via text message and email to those dog owners who have yet to register their dog in late January, early February. I just wanted to confirm that that will definitely be happening.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, so that's the ones that have already registered that haven't re-registered. So we have those details. Like obviously we don't have details for people who haven't previously registered them, but yeah, that's what we are working with the system to be able to pull those out. We don't necessarily have everyone's, depending on what details or if they have changed phone numbers and that. But yeah, that's basically the first strategy that we use.
And my second question, just in terms of the contractor, it says that it's proposed to use a contractor to undertake the program. I had thought in previous years we'd actually had an off employed to do it, and I just wanted some clarity around why and who and any impacts with that.
Yeah, essentially that's when we're saying contractor, we're using labour hire, and that's what we have done in the past, so they would come under, and it's basically just so that our compliance officers can continue on doing their compliance role rather than doing the door-to-door rego. So it is supplementing them, but yeah, we really use labour hire or it's contract staff. So it's just additional staff to our short-term, to our normal compliance officers.
Yeah, thank you. I know there have been significant changes in terms of the registration. We did a hefty review, and I think there is a role here in terms of trying to communicate some of that information. I don't know what that looks like, but I know when we made those changes, we were anticipating to write to every resident who would be impacted and let them know early, and that hasn't happened. And I'm mindful with this program that if residents go out, there's still, if this person goes out, you know, there's still a risk that people don't fully understand the reasons why. So just my final supplementary question is to GMO May is just in terms of the communication of these changes and the program and its purpose. Is there a communication piece or something happening from an advertising point of view in our weekly paper article or something that can help people better understand the reasons why this decision was made?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, so we certainly could implement some community educational media around it. This is just the statutory bit, and we have to advertise for that statutory compliance. But yeah, going alongside of that, and we normally do advertise that we are doing the systematic inspection program, so people are aware of it. But we can add an element of just explanation around those fee changes, I suppose.
Yeah, thank you. I'd certainly, as a councillor, be very grateful for that. I think there's a lot of information that needs to be shared there with the community so that they can be more informed as to why council made those decisions. And certainly I think that would help in the lead up to any review we do as well. So I'd really appreciate any work that can be done in that space to better inform our community. Thank you, General Manager O'May and your team for the amazing work you do.
Councillor Duff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I seconded the motion, but I'm actually going to support Councillor Urquhart. So I think the timing is poor. I think the communication hasn't been good about what the changes we've made. We're going to review it all, and I'm not going to support us going out there. I think that we've got compliance officers and I know that you're going to get somebody else to do it, but I think that there's a lot more serious issues around weeds and things like that where we should be targeting those rather than going out and chasing dog registrations at this point.
Okay. Further speakers, councillor Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, we've had long discussions around this in previous year. And everyone in this chamber knows my take on animals/dogs. There were 7 categories in this. We discussed this, and I'm sure everyone received an email from correspondents in our local region in the last week or so in relation to this, asking for some clarification. And I can recall that a facility that council has out here has some expenditure of $450,000, and whether that's been portrayed to the public in the right manner, I'm not sure. But we have 17 categories in this. 7 went up, 2 went down, and 8 never changed. And out of those 7 categories that went up, there's probably only one of those that has a major increase, as in, and I'll state, from $28 to $131. And there's a reason for that, and it was explained long and debated long and hard when we came up with this last year. So the figures are there. But yeah, happy, and I can understand Councillor Duff. It mightn't be the timing, and whether we put resources into going out. We're trying to fall in line with animal management and make our registration of animals probably current in relation to other councils as well, and trying to control what we have out there in this registration system. So I can appreciate Councillor Erkin's concern, but with the figures that's in front of me here, it'll be an interesting debate in March, Mr Mayor, so I appreciate that. I think what's proposed to us here, it doesn't matter what we do, it's we're going to come up against some objections anyway, but I think you will find out of the categories there, which is, in the figures 5,882, there is 2,256 that have been altered, and out of that, majority is only 441 there's a major effect on. So anyway, that's just the figures I have, Mr Mayor, and I look forward to, I'm fully supportive of this. No time's a good time, but can appreciate the work going into it by our staff, and look forward to further debate in March. Thank you.
Councillor Jones, do you have anything to add? Oh, you had your light on before.
Oh, yeah.
Is she on with
I can't. No, it's all too many. Yeah, look, I'm happy for this to go ahead simply because it'll give us, when we debate this, it'll give us a fair indication on numbers of dogs and all that sort of stuff. Yes, it's not good, all that sort of stuff. I believe that the numbers that Councillor Henson just quoted, but we did only put a 50% increase on it. I think that went up $60 to $60 odd. But yeah, all I'll say is, as Councillor Henson mentioned, it's a $450,000 plus service, RSPCA. We have a massive shortfall currently in dog registrations and that sort of stuff covering that fee. That's what that discussion started from. So again, keep that in mind when we get into, we can drop the service completely. What are we going to do with the dogs that cause trouble and all that sort of stuff? So interesting conversations coming, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Potter.
Yep, thank you. So I think my first question would be, because I know if we're going to employ someone or get someone to go out and do this, how much is that going to cost us as council? Because I can't see anything here in the financial implications and financial and resource implications. But I'm gathering this is already added into our budget from last year. But I just would like to know the cost of this, and I'm probably in similar agreements with Councillor Erkins on this, is maybe we should be leaving this. I realise we probably need to get the numbers, but we sort of do have the numbers anyway because we know the ones that haven't re-registered. But I think it'd be really good to maybe leave this, depending on the pricing, is because are we going to spend more money than what we're going to get back and things like that? So, you know, is it going to balance itself out? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Okay, General Manager May.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, so essentially it's a self-funding program because the registration fees that you do collect fund the officers. We do issue infringement notices as well as part of this for people who do ignore the registration fees and their responsibilities in that. And yeah, it might seem tough, but we've got, again, 3/4 of the population doing the right thing. So we're targeting those people. I was going to suggest with the program, I know that the debate, that the question is that category in the rural residential area. This is a 3-month program because you can run that for 3 months. So if council's of mind to approve the program, we could operationally not go into those rural residential area where the category has changed. So and leave those until the end of the program in the May sort of time. So you would be able to do like the town areas where there was sort of no changes and that, those would, and that's probably where a bulk of the dogs are. So that's probably the areas we could concentrate on first, and then after council has had the debate. So we're not targeting that. So as probably an olive branch, Councillor Erkins.
Thank you, General Manager May. Councillor Erkins, do you want to move an amendment? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay,
That
go ahead.
We commence that program in the town areas.
So if we were to put the systematic program conducted between the hours of 8 and 5,
Probably
Monday to Friday.
within the South Burnett Regional town areas, regional councils, town areas. How do I do a question on notice?
Just ask. Can I say I look forward to you chairing next week? It's a shame I'm not going to be here to challenge you as you challenge me.
Beyond video.
Can I Teams in?
Okay, so I would like to know, can we get the figures from the RSPCA? How many dogs do they actually impound? How long are they kept there for? What are the costs from there?
We'll take that as a question on notice, duly noted. Thank you, Councillor. So, Councillor, your amendment
Is that
Okay.
council approves. So within the South Burnett town,
Yep. So
areas.
Kimberly's got that. So that's
yeah, and the rest of it the same.
town areas. So excluding. So we will exclude rural residential. Okay. So we have the proposed amendment to the motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff. Okay. You can speak to the motion now if you'd like, Councillor Erkins. Anything further?
No, I'm happy.
You happy with that? Further speakers? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just want to pose this question through you to the council. So what happens with the people that have already done the right thing and paid their registrations, and now we're saying we're going to pull it all up and everyone that hasn't paid them, they're all left? That is not fair to everybody and it is not the right way to go. I will not support this amendment to the meeting. You cannot, the people that have already paid it and done the right thing will be crucified, or not crucified, but disadvantaged because the people that haven't paid it, because they're querying and arguing over the amount, they're getting let off and they're not going to be enforced and all the rest of it. Where's the fairness in that to everybody across the region that owns dogs? And cats should be included in registration too, Mr CEO.
Okay, Councillor Erkins, you're challenging me again, but yes, please answer it.
That's got nothing, doesn't say anything to do with whether the people have paid their registration or not. This is just that they start with the inspections in town. As to whether it gets changed and how that affects those who change, I'm sure that they can, it wouldn't be a hard thing to give those people a credit. So the ones that have paid have actually paid up until there and they can credit them with the other money. So it gives them, their next lot is paid if we were to change it. I'm not saying we were.
Okay. You've got the floor, Councillor Jones. We'll stay with you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all good, but you're saying that we're going out to enforce because that's the idea. Inspect, and if I'm correct, General Manager said before that if they aren't registered, they will be enforced to pay in town. What about the people on the rural residential that have already paid, that you're not going to send the inspectors out to do that? So therefore, it's not fair to every resident that owns a dog.
We didn't say they weren't going out to those ones. They said that they were going to start with the ones in town. By the time we come up to our meeting in March, whenever it is in March, they're only starting in March, They'll still be doing town for a lot longer than just March. Then at that meeting where we're deciding on fees, that's when we would be debating what happens to those who have already paid their fees.
I just clarify, we won't be deciding on the fees until the budget is adopted in June. So there'll be no decision taken until the special budget meeting in June. So I think Councillor Jones is probably on the right path there. We'll be having a budget committee meeting and it will be recommended up to but it will not be decided until June, till this ends. So let's be clear on that.
Okay, so at that budget meeting, but one of the things that we could decide if the council so...
Well, no, we can't decide.
No, but they could...
Councillor, I'm going to shut you down. Please take a seat. We're with Councillor Jones. Please take a seat. We'll stay with you, Councillor Jones, then we'll go to Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. And I just want to, it says here, this systematic inspection program will be conducted commencing on the 1st of March and concluding on the 30th of June. So that is correct, Councillor Erkins. But again, if you are going to send an inspector out to the town area and concentrate on them, how can it be fair to the rural residential people that have complained and all the rest of it? And there is people, I have no doubt, there is people in that rural residential area that have paid their dog registration. It just gets too messy. And to be fair to all constituents, you know, fair and equitable is, it's either all in or none. Sorry.
Councillor Potter.
Okay. A couple of things through you, Mr Mayor. So the first thing is, with Councillor Erkin's question on notice, she's actually only mentioned dogs. Can I have cats added to your question on notice, if that's okay, through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Erkins? We can add cats.
Councillor, please. I think we should get a General Manager O'May on that in terms of whether we'd actually be able to provide data on cats. GM?
Yeah, we don't impound the cats, but whether the RSPCA can supply figures on what are surrendered to them. But yeah, I just have to check whether that data is available. But
thank you.
We'll leave that with you anyway, GM. I guess I'm sure you'll provide us with whatever you can. Thank you. We'll stay with Councillor Potter.
And so with this, I'm going to change. So with this particular wording here that we've got, it just means that it's just going to start in the town areas. It still will get out to the rural and rural residential areas, but just at a later date.
Oh, I'm a bit confused, as is the CEO. I think we're all confused here. Councillor Erkins, are you suggesting that we don't touch the rural residential areas at all under this program, or that they are done secondary? We do the towns first and then we move on to the rural residential, which is what the staff were going to do anyway. You may now answer the question. Thank you.
That we commence with the town areas and leave the rural residential areas to last.
Right. Well, let's get that clear then. Then can you help our officer with the wording of that final paragraph then? Thank you. Well, Mr. CEO, could you jump in and clarify that for us? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you, Kimberly, for clarifying that. Is that your intention? Okay.
Yes.
Councillor Duff,
So
as the seconder, are you comfortable with that?
No, because I thought we
You're
were
not.
just
Okay.
excluding the rural residential.
Okay, so,
Now I'm confused.
all right. So, Mr. CEO, where the seconder is not supportive of the change to the amended motion, can I seek an alternative seconder, or we have to go to a whole new amendment and vote on this one?
I was thinking lunch, but anyway.
I'm very much with you there.
Yeah, no. It goes back to the intent of it would go back in my mind to the intent of the amendment, and that was I was with the mayor because I was reading how it ended up, and I took the intent of Councillor Oaken's amendment that it was to be start and finish, not start and exclude. So yeah, so it probably if Councillor Duff is withdrawing her support, if there's an alternative seconder, it might be the easiest. Otherwise, you deal with the first one and then vote it down and then have another go.
That being the case, if this is the intention, councillor, can you confirm you're happy with the wording? And then we'll seek an alternative seconder.
My original intention was that we excluded the rural until after we had our March meeting. However, I didn't think everyone would vote for it, so that's why I was happy to do it. So we start with the ones in town, finish with the ones on acreage, because by then I think we would have had more discussion on the fees.
Yes, but let's be clear. We will certainly have had more discussion before June comes around.
Can I ask,
but
Councillor,
can I speak, councillor?
Can I ask how long it will take to
Can
do
I
the
speak
ones
without
in
being
town?
interrupted, please, councillor Erkins?
Okay.
Thank you. I look forward to when you're chairing the meeting. I really, really do. But can I say this? Just be very clear, though, to the community. Council will not making any decisions on dog fees for next financial year until we adopt the budget in late June. Okay, so there will be no decision made. So this program will be fully implemented by our staff, as we're asking them to do, without any changes. Okay, so you may still get those concerns raised, as Councillor Jones has referred to. So just be aware of that. Yeah. But are you comfortable with that motion? Let's get that clear first.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Mayor. Actually, in hindsight, we probably actually, given the contention and the debate already, we probably should go back to the first wording, leave it with the first and seconder, and just vote it up or down.
Thank you.
And then that's clean. Yeah, it just maintains faith with the process.
Yes, thank you. So, Kimberly, let's take out that and leave it as excluding the rural residential areas. Is there a councillor who hasn't had an opportunity to speak on that particular amendment? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a core project, core activity of council to do a systematic inspection program. We do this every year. This is not a change. What we do is we send out our dog registration renewals. We ask people to register their dogs. They come forward and do that, and then we send somebody out to check. This is such an important part of our responsibilities under the Animal Management Act. In terms of the fees, there was long, hard discussions. We have had giant debates about that. It will be reviewed, as will every fee and charge with the budget. But I won't flip-flop on that decision. That's not fair to the staff to try to make changes to the fee now and halfway through a system. That's not what we should be doing in terms of good governance. I think this is very much business as usual. I fully support the staff in going and doing the systematic inspection program. And, I'm looking forward to, I've requested some more information about those dog registration fees so that we can, as councillors, share those key messages and the reasons why they changed with our community. And I accept that not everybody will agree with that. However, I'm comfortable in the decision I made. I very much would like to support the original motion, please, that the program continues to happen as per normal.
I think we've all had a chance to speak on this one, have we? Councillor Henson, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be very short and very sweet about this, but it states here on every page, and it mentions it umpteen times, systematic approach. And if you go down to page 170, the applicable goal and strategies are to develop and implement a systematic program. I would have thought the systematic program would have worked through the South Burnett, because if you pick out towns and want to go to a town, you're going to turn around then, when that's done, and go back over where you've been, the rural residential areas. That's not a systematic approach. If you're going to go work your way through the South Burnett, how about, and I fully support this, how about you work your way through it as it's been stated here in the report? So I think I'm fully supportive of the way it is. Otherwise, the council's going to be back, and whoever they engage is going to be back over where they've been in the town and village areas, going back into the rural residential areas. So where's the systematic approach in that and the cost implications of that? I'm sorry, but I think as it's presented to us here, Kingaroy, Cumbria, all those towns and villages, yes, I'm fully supportive of that.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. I'll just add one little bit. Look, yeah, I think Councillor Henson raised a really good point. EN9, we signed up to that as part of our corporate plan to develop and implement a systematic program to take action to address these sorts of issues. So I think that's clear in our corporate plan. And if we're not going to support these things, I'm not sure why we'd have them in there. So that's my view. Councillor Erkins, to close the debate. Thank you.
Well, I think You've given me a fair opportunity to speak on it. I just would like to remind my councillors, if they're unsure of how unhappy the community were with this decision, speak to the staff who are manning our counters. It was a very, very unhappy community who live 20 kilometres from town, previously had a very cheap dog registration, and it was lifted a fair amount of money. So that's why I'm going to support the amendment and not the motion. Thank you.
Okay, and look, can I just take the chair's liberty, a little bit of liberty as the chair here, to the community, if you're listening, and even media, let's get a message out. Please do not shoot the messenger. I know that our front counter staff right across the South Burnett have copped a lot of criticism and aggression across the front counter when people are coming in to pay their dog registration fees. Please, they are just doing their job. You know, they are normal citizens like you who are just doing their job. This decision was taken by the council. I voted for it. We voted for it. If you have a problem with it, please ring your local councillor, contact your local councillor or contact the mayor, or submit your complaint to the office of the CEO. But please do not direct your anger or frustration to our hard-working people that are the front line at the customer contact. I think that's highly inappropriate, and I don't think we want to see anyone in our region, in our staff, having to put up with that. So please, please do not give our staff a hiding over this. They are just doing their job. Thank you. Okay, shall we go to the vote? Those in favour of the amendment? Councillor Erkins. Those against? Everyone else? So it's been defeated 6 votes to 1. We'll now go back to the original motion, councillors. And Councillor Duff, are you wanting to suggest something? I can see you wanting to put your light on.
I'm just wondering, can I speak against the motion?
Well, we'll go back to the original motion, being moved by Councillor Potter, seconded by you. So we'll go around the table again, will we? Okay, so yes, Mr. CEO, is that okay? Yep, okay. We'll resume the debate. Thank you.
So I want to speak against the motion because, as Councillor Shoemaker said, we didn't do the proper consultation, and I agree with what Deputy Mayor Jones was saying about picking and choosing. I don't think we should pick and choose. I don't think we should do the systematic inspections. As General Manager O'May said, we haven't done it for some years. It's not like it has been said in this chamber that it's something we do every year. We haven't done it for some years. So why would we do it now when everybody's, as Councillor Erkin said at the start, when everybody's a bit sort of overwhelmed by the changes? I would rather see us spend our resources on what I think is much more of an issue, and that is the weeds and the potential of parthenium and those weeds that are going to wreck our rural industry. I would rather our compliance officers be going out there trying to stop parthenium.
Councillor, can I just interject? Sorry, I'll let you continue. Please stay at the floor. General Manager May, did we not conduct an inspection though last year? I thought we did. Because I know I had residents saying to me that they had an inspector come round and knock on the door advising that they hadn't paid their fees and asking them could they please go and do so. So I thought we did do an inspection last year.
Yeah, we would. Our compliance officers still do that as part of their normal duties. This is like the systematic program where so it's really that power of entry that they're entering under that program. Whereas if the officers are out there, or if they're aware of, someone's got an unregistered dog and we've had complaints, so they will approach those. But this is where we are going just systematically door to door. We're identifying dogs that previously haven't been registered that are in the yards and that. So, but the officers do, but yeah, just certainly not to the extent.
Thank you for clarifying. Sorry, we'll stay with you, Councillor Duff.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. With our limited resources on compliance, I would much rather see us go out and right now I think it's an urgent issue with the weeds, and particularly the parthenium. I've been told there's parthenium now further down Baramba Creek, and that's where I think we should be focusing right now, not stirring up a hornet's nest with some people that are concerned about the dog fees.
Further speakers? Councillor Hitchin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and again we'll agree to disagree, Councillor Duff, because as much as the parthenium and the weeds are extremely important, and I agree with you totally there, the purpose of this is also in relation to our feral management, where people can control their dogs and have them registered and it be noted. We can throw some figures out there. 300 feral dogs have been caught within one syndicate. In the other syndicate that's been started, there's something like 100. Now, there's 400. You throw that in amongst your cattle industry, you throw that in amongst your sheep. We have some wonderful Dorper sheep industries within it. Our region, our cattle, goats, sheep, not to mention other people's domestic pets being attacked and savaged by wild dogs. This is a step, and just one step. And Mr. Mayor, thank you for bringing that E9. Here we are trying to work towards continuing to complement our staff and our management practices in controlling this, and this is a small price to pay. And some of the figures I read out there, 441 odd, and how many of those are in actual fact affected by it. I think this is just a step in the right direction, and to pussyfoot around with this, to me, I'm sorry, being rural and to see what damage, and continually, and I've had those conversations with people as well, when explained to them how many puppies, how many dogs go out to that RSPCA facility out there, and what happens to them then. If they're not rehomed or someone take ownership of them, we all know what happens to them. As Councillor Jones and I stated before, that cost is enormous. That needs to be portrayed to the public as well. So I think this is a very, very important step, and I commend the staff in what's been done in the previous years with trying to get on top of this, and it's a thankless task because there's some people out there are fairly irresponsible, and you know my take on animals. I won't continue to repeat myself. If you can't afford to look after them and can't afford to register them, well, maybe you shouldn't have 4 or 5 dogs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly see that this program is very important. It says here, as per the legal implications and our statutory requirements, all dogs over the age of 3 months are obliged to be registered with the local authority in which the animal resides, as required by the state's animal management legislation. This systematic inspection program seeks to proactively check to see if animal owners are complying with their obligations. I absolutely think we cannot set a rule and then change how we're going to manage that just because it suits our own needs or might make us feel better. At the end of the day, change is hard. This was a very difficult decision. We decided to share the costs of running animal management services across a much bigger footprint, which meant that it was much less of an impact for every single individual dog owner. My dog just recently spent a couple of hours in the pound. I was so grateful that somebody had actually picked up my much-loved 10-year-old beagle and had taken them to the pound. Thank you so much. Because my dog is registered and microchipped, they contacted me and said, Kirsty Shoemaker, we have your dog in the pound, and I picked it up that afternoon. You know, that is an amazing service. That is an absolutely amazing service. And we absolutely need those services in our community if we're going to be responsible dog owners. I'm supportive of the program. I think we need to do this in terms of sustainability and continuing to deliver these services. This needs to be done. Thank you.
Councillor Oakins, we'll go to you shortly. Before I do, I'm going to issue...
I just have one question.
Councillor, I'm going to issue you with an official warning as the chair. You continue to engage in discussion with your colleagues. You continue to interrupt. This is an official warning to be noted in the minutes. There is to be no discussion between councillors privately during a debate, and there's certainly be no speaking without being invited to do so by the chair. This is an official warning to be noted. If it happens again, I'll be removing you from the chamber. Thank you. It's now your opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. Could I just ask a question? When Councillor Shoemaker dog was impounded, was there a fine?
Would you like me to answer? No, because it was less than 24 hours, because I picked it up before the night time, I took my happy dog home and there was no fee. That was also on a Sunday that happened.
Quickly, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And Councillor Shoemaker, may I ask, if there was a fee, would you have paid it?
Absolutely. Would give my organs for my dog.
Okay. Is there anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to speak on this motion? If I could just speak before we go back to Councillor Potter, if she wants to close as the mover, is to say that, look, again, there's a couple of issues here. we have people who have done the right thing and paid. We have people who have done the wrong thing and not paid. I think we've got an obligation to be fair and consistent, as other councillors have articulated. As Councillor Jones said, how is that fair and consistent? Some people have done the right thing and paid, others haven't, and we're not going to fulfil our regulatory responsibility to follow up on that. I just think that that's irresponsible as a council for us to not follow up. As Councillor Shoemaker said, the regulation says we're supposed to follow up on it. We've got a requirement to do that by the state government. We've got some people who've done the right thing. I don't think that they should be disadvantaged because they did the right thing. This is a part of a systematic responsibility of council, and we certainly do not want to see dogs out there breeding. I have a dog from your division, Councillor Erkins. So I had a lady, an elderly lady from your division, on the phone in tears to me on Sunday because there are, next to her house, 3 dogs that I strongly suspect are unregistered, and they are barking 24 hours a day. This poor lady is in tears because she can't get any sleep, and she's an elderly resident over the age of 80. Now, I fully expect that our inspectors will find those dogs, will identify them, and will resolve the matter through this process, because 3 dogs is above and beyond what you're entitled to have in town. So, there is a lot to this. I'll be supporting the motion put forward by the staff. Thank you. Councillor Potter, to close.
Actually, I don't need to, Mr Mayor. I think you just did it for me and very nicely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour of the motion? Okay, Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Jones, Potter, Henson and Otto. Those against? Councillor Erkins and Councillor Duff. Thank you all. Okay, 15.1, Proston Pool Management Update at 173. We have the report there. Thank you to the staff for bringing that forward. And the recommendation is that report be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Henson. Speakers, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say how wonderful it is that the Proston Pool was able to be open through the Christmas break, and there was, if you have a look at the report, there's been fantastic usage of the pool and the opportunities that Natalie from Wandai Pool has been amazing, and the community is very, very grateful and thankful. It's a wonderful, good news story, so thank you.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just wanted to acknowledge the pool manager, Natalie Mann. It seems like from the report, she's been busy with hydro classes, boxing classes, babies classes, learn to swim classes. It's wonderful to see that happening in the Proston community, and to hear that there were so many children and adults enjoying the pool being open. I just would like to thank Natalie and, of course, our staff who have put those arrangements in place and tried to find a way to keep the pool open over the summer period. So that's fantastic. Good report.
Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I actually spoke to a lady the other day who's actually been out to the pool, done a couple of those particular classes out there, and she thanked us as a council as a whole because she's now able to do the exercise she needed to do, because before that the pool is the only place she can do it, and to have that out there because she can't drive anywhere to do it. So she just thanked us as a council for opening that up through to Natalie at Wandai. Thank you.
Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, quickly, what a wonderful result for Proston. I've had nothing but positives come back from that, and hopefully it has taken a few of the kids and whatnot away from down at the Weir. But I will just like to, while we are in this chambers and on a general meeting day on a Wednesday, make sure the public is fully aware. It's been put out in a media release that they're actually closed tomorrow for Australia Day, which it is disappointing. I'm pretty sure there'll be some kids maybe expecting to go down to the pool. Fully appreciate Natalie doing a wonderful job there, but it's not open tomorrow. So hopefully the public are aware of that and they take that on board and appreciate what's happening there.
General Obey, could you also please pass on from, if I can speak on behalf of all my colleagues, our sincere thanks to Manager Leanne Peterson, who I know worked really hard to get this outcome for the Proston community. She negotiated and worked through this. She never gave up the cause because she struggled to get someone to take over the Proston pool. She managed to get Natalie on board, so I think we owe a lot to Leanne. She's done a great job. Yeah, thank you. Further speakers? Anything to close? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 15.2, Local Recovery Resilience Grants projects at 177. We have a report there. First of all, the recommendation is that the matter be lifted from the table, Mr CEO. Yep. Okay, so do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Shoemaker, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. We then have the projects provided there, Council, and we are just looking at what we've got as a recommendation from the committee. The workshop was held, and it's now recommended, I think we're at page 179, that the following projects be submitted to the Queensland Reconstruction Authority for approval under the Local Recovery and Resilience Grant funding issued under Category D, Disaster Recovery Funding Arrangements. Actually, I think I'm on the wrong page, sorry, councillors. Yeah, what page was it? 177, thank you. At 177 is the, so the table at 177 is what we're voting on, that be submitted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, a seconder? Councillor Potter. Thank you. Speakers, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'm very happy with this, the proposal. I think that we've got it right now. We were concerned about the $45,000 going to one event, and now it's divisional events that connect the community, so that'll give every community an opportunity to have some input into what that event looks like. Also happy with the 100,000 now being for workshops and information sessions, external agency to facilitate primary producer workshops. I think that is broad enough that we can work with BIEDA or whatever group we can to get some good outcomes through that $100,000. So I'm very, very happy with the mix of what we've done with that money, and I think we'll be able to adequately, tick all the boxes for our that resilience grant funding. So thank you. Happy to commend it to the chamber.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And I just want to apologise to all my fellow colleagues. I couldn't attend that workshop, but I think, as Councillor Duff has alluded to, you've done a wonderful job. I just want to ask one question in the with the 100,000 on the workshops and information session, external agency to facilitate primary producer workshops. Is that just going to be, what happens, is it available or open if somebody else that's not a primary producer wants to attend? Is that going to be able to be sourced, or, like other community members that haven't got a primary producing property or something like that and they want to attend for whatever reason? Is that a possibility, Pete?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm sure that would be a possibility. It's just that the workshops will be targeted at those activities to help prime producers become more resilient, and that. So it's just, but yeah, we certainly wouldn't be excluding anyone from programs if they're interested.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd just like to say thank you to Linda for all the work she's done in this space through UGMMA, and also I really look forward to helping the younger generation build up their capacity for resilience in this space, because this pillowcase project is going to be absolutely amazing. And I think when we as councillors have the opportunity to help in the libraries, when this goes to the libraries with the birdie books, I think we should jump at every single chance we have to spend that with those children in the libraries with those books. And I do expect to see you using those puppets when you do that. Thank you.
We'll follow your lead, Councillor. Councillor Shoemaker.
I happen to be a great puppeteer, so I look forward to that. Agreed. Look, someone said to me, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day, but you teach a man how to fish and he eats for a lifetime. And really, those workshops and information sessions, that's about sharing information that growers and producers across the region told us in those surveys that we did that they wanted to know more about. And that's about helping them become more climate resilient into the future, but also empowering them to be more informed and to, I guess, lead some of the changes that they would like to see. I think those workshops and information sessions are really about focusing on the things that matter on the ground to those people and enabling them to provide feedback about that. I think it's an opportunity for knowledge and education sharing. It's also a great opportunity to build local networks, and I'm very excited about the calibre of different projects, events and activities that will be coming up across the region. I think there is something for everybody in there. I think it's quite a diverse spread, and I also would like to acknowledge that there's significant resilience funding that's come into our region across different levels of government and different funding streams. And at the end of the day, I think the key for us to be more resilient into the future is collaboration. I think it's very important our council is at the table with these different groups, and that we are all working together in this space. I don't think we can do this alone, and I think we need to really put the effort in to build those solid relationships, to work together and to deliver the outcomes, because at the end of the day, I fear that at some point government will say, well, we've given you a lot of money, South Burnett, and, you know, how resilient really are you? And I know the resilience of the people in this region. We've been through enough droughts and floods that have proven that. But at the end of the day, we cannot afford to waste this opportunity. We need to invest these funds wisely, and we need to deliver on the outcomes that we've set and be accountable to those. So I really do hope to see some good collaboration across the South Burnett, and look forward to being involved.
Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Jones, in relation to the workshops and information centres. There's been some conversation out there about within the negativity of some people in our community and say that it's a waste of money. Well, I'll encourage the people out there to turn up. We put these things on and people don't come, so what a great opportunity for the people to turn up. There's that many things there listed in those project descriptions. If you can't, or you're not interested in turning up to a big percentage of them, or at least one or two of them, I'd suggest don't come to council and complain about wasting money, because this is an incredible initiative taken on by, and thank you again to Linda O'May for the work that's gone into this, and my fellow colleagues here when we sat in this chamber and nutted this out and fine-tuned it. As Councillor Duff said, we've changed that $45,000 to what it originally was, to divisional events that connect the community. Every one of those items there ticks a box in someone's back pocket, some shape or form. And I don't mean the back pocket monetary wise, I mean the back pocket by not being sitting on your bum. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, well said, Councillor. And of course, this was done. These list of projects have been developed after a lot of work. There's been 1,600 surveys here, I see, mailed out. We've had online Survey Monkey. We've had 250 survey responses come back. So there's been a lot of community engagement on this, and well done to the staff for putting so much work into finding out from our community what they want. So, yeah, very well done. Okay, anything further to close, Councillor Duff, before we go to the vote?
Mr Mayor.
Thank you all. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Council, could I suggest that we take a break for lunch now? I'd like to move that we break for lunch. We have a second. Councillor Henson, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillor Henson, thank you. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, we are up to item 16.1. Reduction in camping fees for the Kingaroy Girl Guides at 183. It's recommended that Council supports the request and offers a 20% discount off accommodation and camping fees during their training days. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, second to Councillor Duff. Speakers? No. Straight to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 17.1, Councillor Shoemaker has opted to leave for conflict of interest, and we'll note that General Manager Meehan has also left. Thank you, Kimberly. And the item is at 185, and it is in relation to the development application that has been previously considered by Council. And so the recommendation that we have now come forward is that the application for a material change of use for a development permit for a showroom and service station with ancillary food and drink outlet at Rogers Drive, Kingaroy, described as Lot 5 on SP 112069, be approved by Council as a full delegate, subject to the attached conditions, plans and the adopted infrastructure charges notice. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Duff. Okay. Any speakers? Councillor, we have questions. Councillor Erkins.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Can I just clarify? So this is actually to approve this. It hasn't been approved.
my understanding is, and I'll have General Manager O'May clarify, that we've approved it, but it was subject to certain conditions. So this is now to approve the conditions and the infrastructure charges components of the approval. But if you could just confirm whether that's correct or not. Thanks, GM.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. So at the last council meeting, we brought forward the recommendation, and the recommendation was only to approve part of the showroom component, not the service station and showroom. The council wanted to approve both the service station and the showroom. So at the previous council meeting, we didn't have conditions covering the whole development. So now we've included conditions that cover both service
so
station.
again, I'm confused. Was that a committee meeting or at a meeting?
It was the December ordinary meeting of council on the 14th of December. Yep.
So I just feel on this, when that was presented to us and they had a picture up there of Spotlight, I personally believe that that was extremely misleading to councillors. It was an implication that Spotlight was going to go in there, which was not the case at all. So I've got some serious concerns about how how that was presented, and I don't know where to go from here, but I'm definitely against the whole thing because I think we were misled in that. It was for a showroom, it wasn't for Spotlight, but the picture showed a big Spotlight and people think, I believe some councillors thought it was to whether we're getting Spotlight.
I certainly don't think the staff did, or certainly didn't even intend to mislead anyone. I don't think that was what was intended. General Manager O'May, did you want to just answer that? Thanks.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, so any of the planning applications, so like this, you are approving a showroom. And so, yes, I think in the architectural drawings or something, the applicant or supplier, they might have had that listed as Spotlight, but there's no guarantee of any tenant, so that's up to them. But that's probably irrelevant from a planning and from a council point of view. We're approving that use of a showroom. And I suppose that's probably just the understanding that, but there was never any intention that it's an approval for Spotlight, it's an approval for a showroom.
Thank you, General Manager. Further speakers? Councillor Potter? Yep.
Yep, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just curious, I know we've had a few sort of discussions with regards to Rogers Drive. I don't know where it's at with regards to the making Rogers Drive a one-way route or not. I know we've had Councillor Jones and myself have sort of discussed it, and I know it came through a council meeting that they were going to do that engagement with the shops around that area. I'm just wondering, will these plans that they have put forward with regards to the driveways be affected if we decide that Rogers Drive does become a one-way thoroughfare?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. So that shouldn't necessarily affect this approval, this development. The development is conditioned that there be no B-double access to it. The applicants are quite aware of it. They can service the service station part without utilising B-doubles. The one-way access, I think when the infrastructure guys did present those plans, there was an option that you would actually still be able to access this without doing the whole loop. So there was a turn-off you'd be able to get onto this site. And then it would be one way essentially past the driveway entrance to this site. So the design for a one way of Rogers Drive did take into account that the possibility of this site being a service station or being developed. So the design did include access to this even if it was turned to one way.
Councillor Hensham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I voiced some disapproval to this when it came across our desk, and as Councillor Erkin has said, as far as misleading information, if you go to page 202, it clearly states there spotlights put up in bright lights on those designs that have been put in front of us. So I can totally agree with Councillor Erkins there in that concern. The other thing, as I also mentioned back in that December meeting in relation to the traffic and in that roundabout, and the event we know what we've experienced down in the industrial estate in Wandai with one-ways, and to get large traffic, and it states in the documentation here in relation to B-doubles and whatnot accessing in and out of there. And if they're going to have to traverse around that entire area to come back round past BCF and Harvey Norman to get access into there, I am sure we'll see something come across council's desk again in relation to objections to that traffic movement in that area. We have 7 service stations in Kingaroy at the moment, and if they've ticked all the boxes, well, it's a brave council certainly to object to any of it, but I feel that it will be detrimental to the other business houses in. As much as it might promote some business in surrounding areas there, I think it'll be extremely detrimental to the 7 service stations that are in Kingaroy at the moment. And as far as economic growth and development is concerned, we all want economic growth and development, but another service station makes 8. And we have a service station in every town and some villages within a 15-kilometre radius of Kingaroy as well. So I struggle with this a bit, and I'm all for progress, don't get me wrong, but the position of it probably should have been done many years ago, but that precinct out there wasn't even developed when they probably should have perhaps thought about that 20 years ago. But yeah, I'm divided on this one, and I feel for the business houses, and the facts and figures that I've received from service stations in Kingaroy, it's going to be detrimental. And there was a saying from previous and neighbouring councils, and certainly Western councils, that why make one better in the detriment of the others? Well, I think that's exactly a case of this. There will be service stations in this town seriously struggle with another one. I don't think this environment can sustain another service station. To take it to 8, I'm dumbfounded with the price of fuel and people that are curbing their travel requirements, the necessity of travel, that another one, and I just, for the record, I feel for the business houses that are service stations at the moment. I really do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I supported this one in the beginning to have it come back now with the conditions, so I'm happy to see that that's happened. The reasons were, and I understand what Councillor Hench is saying, but there's an absence of such a facility at that southern corridor into Kingaroy. I think the position lends itself to a service station, but also it was more about supporting that whole development, because I think that if you went with just one and not the other, it probably would have fallen over. I think that there's we need to support industry and growth, and so for that reason I wanted to make sure that we didn't lose the opportunity to have the showroom, and then I think that position for that service station will be a good spot there for where there's a gap in when you're coming in on that side. It would be good to have a service station there, and also, like I say, to support that other, to make sure that showroom goes ahead.
Anything further? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, excuse me, thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of questions through you to the staff, or to you as well. With this decision here today, if it gets up, does that give the approval to go ahead with construction, providing they meet all the conditions that are put on them? And as we all know, if a development meets all conditions that are put on them, you have to have very, very, very strong reasons to object to it. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. So this is the development permit, so that's the approval to proceed. There will be, those conditions impose a number of obligations and maybe operational works approvals or conditions to meet. But if they can meet them, then that is their approval.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, another question. So, if this decision gets supported today in council, the process from there is the developer do they have to go and put a sign out on that particular site and notify people and allow for objection, or has there been community consultation or anything like that of other people that have been asked? What's the process there?
So sorry, Mr. Mayor. So this has been through the public notification stage. So it has been through that process. So from here, we did have submissions on the project. So we would issue the approval. Those people who have submitted do have the option to appeal. So potentially a submitter could lodge an appeal in the Planning and Environment Court, and until that was heard and determined either way, so that's when the approval would take place. So there'll be a period of whatever the time frame, say 30 days, that the submitters have got to appeal. So the approval won't take place until that appeal period is finished, whether it be via lapsing of the time to make an appeal, or whether it's been determined by the court the appeal be dismissed. So yes, it has been through that public consultation phase. The sign was up, people made their submissions. So yeah, that's already passed.
So again, through you, Mayor. So I notice in some of the conditions there's driveways and all that sort of stuff, accesses and all that have been addressed. But if we go down the path and we approve this and the service station becomes very successful, and Councillor Henson's already mentioned it, the need of B-doubles. None of those other businesses, Bunnings Mitre 10 and all that, currently use B-doubles. I don't think there's any B-doubles that run in there that I'm aware of. But if the service station takes off, we all know the costs of transport and all that sort of stuff, and all the transport companies that I talk to and businesses, they want to have B-doubles and all that sort of stuff to reduce their transport costs. So I have an issue around the fact that, yes, okay, they don't want to use, they can service the service station currently without B-doubles, but in the future, what protection have we got that they want to come back to us and then apply, like exactly what's happened down at the Wandai Industrial Estate, for example? Now all of a sudden we've got to spend millions upgrading that particular roadway down there because it was never built with the thought of B-doubles, the same with Rogers Drive.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we have conditioned this approval that there is no B-double access. So if they wanted to, they would need to come back to change that condition. So they would need to change their approval, and council would have the options then of what conditions they would put on that approval. So it is conditioned not to have it accessed by B-double. That's not just them saying that. We have actually made that as a condition that they can't use B-doubles. So yeah, if they wanted to change that, then it would have to come back to council to change that condition, and we'd have the option to put relevant conditions on the approval again, facilitating that.
So does that, I get through you again, Mr. Mayor, does that have to be done prior to, like there's no guarantee, they can just go out and say, yeah, no worries, all good, we'll operate, but if they come back in 2 years' time and say, oh, council, I want to upgrade, I need B-doubles because it's just costing me too much with, and we know that having a truck and dog or a tanker or something running in there and consistently turning, it's going to cause damage to that road network. That's my concerns. There's a lot of pressure, added pressure going to go in on top of that road that was never ever built for this particular purpose. And we've already had an example where we've had to spend millions. We haven't finished down in Wandai yet. Is this going to be another scenario like Councillor Henson has raised? There's a couple of questions there that I'm not confident, and that's why I didn't support it in the first place, and I'm struggling to support it again now because of those. There's just not enough clarity around there. There is opportunity to come back and cost money down the track, and we all know if it's successful, and Councillor Duff's right, it's positioned perfectly out there. But if it grows and it needs to expand, what protection? Obviously, you say that it comes back, and we say no. Yeah. So, I'm struggling to get behind this again from my original vote in 4th of December.
Yeah, did you want to clarify anything further, GM?
Yeah, through Mr. No, I don't think I can provide any more clarification. It's no different to any other live development approval out there that they've got the option to come back. And it could be 2 years or 10 years. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. The only thing, and Council, so the full report came to the December meeting. Council effectively approved it, and it's probably half a question, Peter. And So it's effectively approved as of December, but it just doesn't have conditions. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm telling councillors will vote how they vote, but if you vote it down, we will have an approval without conditions. So, so the approval would stand from December. I don't think you can overrun that now because the minutes have been accepted and endorsed and it's approved. This is to condition it. So I'll yield to a planning solicitor in this space, but I'm just not sure where you would go with an approval without conditions.
A very good point, Mr. CEO. Yeah, General Manager. Yeah, we'll, and we'll come back to Councillor Jones because we're still with Councillor Jones at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, it's I had the same question in my head, which was giving me nightmares because I'm not 100% sure what the situation would be there. Yeah, but yeah, I agree. You've essentially approved it with their conditions in the previous meeting, and if it was not approved now, we would need to be seeking some advice because I'm not sure where we would stand.
Thank you, Mr. CEO and GM. We'll stay with Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, just to the CEO's comments, I totally understand, but what I'm trying to do here is convince myself to change my initial vote, and that's what I'm asking the question. I have those concerns, and I just don't know whether it's the right thing to do. I know we're, expansion and all that, and there'll be certain sections of the community saying, "Oh, you're not in favour of this." It's not that at all. It's just concerns about, down the track, and so I voted against it, and so that was the reasons behind my line of question, Mr. CEO, and I totally get it. We're voting on today whether we accept the conditions on that's the difference from the 4th of December. So I've seen them all, and I'm still struggling.
Thank you, Councillor. Further, who hasn't had a chance to speak at this point? I think you've had your opportunity, Councillor Erkins, to make your points of view clear. Councillor Potter.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I voted for this particular development last time, along with Councillor Duff and yourself, Mr. Mayor, because people do talk to you in the community and they do say things. And I do understand what Councillor Erkins was saying. They did have that spotlight up there, but that's not why I voted for it. I voted for it because I always thought that was a really good position to have a service station at that entrance to Kingaroy. So that's the reason I voted for it, and I will be voting for these conditions that have been put forward by the Planning Department. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. General Manager, I'm very comfortable with the conditions. I've read through them, and I think our professional planning officers have done a pretty good job. They've covered all the issues to make sure that there's going to be no cost to council. Cut across stormwater, water, sewerage, engineering costs, repairing, making sure that the parking numbers meet our current planning scheme. So I think these are a long and robust set of conditions that protect our community and our council. The only question I did have, General Manager, was on Gen 3 on page 186. It talks about a 6-year period there. On that particular condition, does council have any scope under the legislation or regulations to reduce that to a lesser period? Or is that pretty well prescribed by government?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. That's the standard currency period in the legislation. So again, they've got that 6 years to act on the approval. If they don't, then they would need to apply, or the approval would lapse. So they can apply for extension if there's relevant circumstances. But yeah, generally 6 years is the currency period for the approval.
Yeah, thank you, General Manager. Okay, Councillor Potter, as the mover, anything to close before we go to the vote?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Duff, Councillor Potter and Councillor Otto. Those against? Okay, Councillor Erkins, Councillor Jones and Councillor Henson. So under our standing orders, I guess it's the Chair's call. So I'll be supporting the recommendation, and we'll take it that the recommendation, the motion has been carried through the chair's casting vote. Motion carried. Thank you all. Shall we call back Councillor Shoemaker? So we'll welcome back Councillor Shoemaker and General Manager Meehan, and we'll move on to 17.2, which is at page 315, and it's in relation to reconfiguring a lot, subdividing one lot into two at 58 Malar Road, Buoy. And we will have a recommendation from our staff there, which is that the application for reconfiguring a lot 1 into 2 over land at 58 Malar Road, Buoy be approved, subject to the following conditions: the attached plan of development and engineering report, Infra engineering report, the attached adopted infrastructure charges notice issued under the South Bennett Regional Council adopted infrastructure charges resolution number 3 of 2019. The conditions are all listed there on pages 315, 316, 317 and 318. So we'll take those as presented, those conditions. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
My only question, just two questions. One, the developer incentive scheme. I see we just noted in the conditions here on, I don't know what page I'm on, sorry, the page number's not there. It just says that the applicant can apply. Just wanted to confirm that they would actually be eligible for the development incentive scheme.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so they would be eligible to apply. So with the development incentive scheme, as you're aware, it's not an automatic right. So because there is that time frame, it's there to incentivise development bringing forward. So say like the previous one, if they wait 6 years to do the development, we don't see that as progressing, so they wouldn't be eligible. So that's why the conditions are written at that they're eligible to apply, but yeah, they still need to go through that process and do the development within the time frames.
Thank you. And just in relation to the one submission, the one objection received, are we confident that the conditions we've put forward actually address the concerns raised in the objection?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. And that is the process that we generally look at conditioning, that we can address the concerns of the condition. And I think that was around amenity, and we've put the covenant or the restrict area where they can't build, so they're not so close to the owner.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm supportive of the application.
Further speakers? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 19.1, first question on notice, compliance statistics at 3:59, where we had a question from Councillor Potter, and we've got the report there from the staff. So it's recommended that the response to the question regarding the breakdown of compliance CRMs for residential and rural residential areas raised by Councillor Potter be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Henson. Speakers, Councillor Potter, you comfortable with the response? It's good covered. Thank you. Thank you to our staff for providing that response. 19.2, audit fee at 360. Question from councillors. Oh, sorry, to the vote. Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm keen to get this done. I always do it at least once, don't I? Okay, so shall we go to the vote on that? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Sorry about that. 19.2, audit fee. Councillor Shoemaker's question, and the recommendation is that response to the question regarding audit fees raised by Councillor Shoemaker be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconded Councillor Duff. Speakers, Councillor Shoemaker, you comfortable with the response?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our finance team for providing that. So we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, we're now up to section 20, page 361, where It's recommended that Council considers the confidential reports listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with Section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012 20.1, consideration for omission on rates assessment notice as stated, considered to be confidential under Section 254JD of the Local Government Regulation, and 20.2, gift of land to the South Burnett Childcare Centre at Kingaroy, considered to be confidential under Section 254J-G of the Local Government Regulation. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Duff. Speakers to the vote. Those in favour? Okay. Carried unanimously. We'll now go into closed session. Thank you all. On live. Okay, Councillor, so we're at item 20.1, and I'd like to move that the matter lay on the table. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 20.2, a gift of land to South Burnett Childcare Centre at Kingaroy. We have a recommendation on screen that South Burnett Regional Council, 1, develop a framework to consider requests from community groups that ask Council to transfer land at nil consideration to ensure consistent decision making. 2, conduct a development application for subdivision of lot 86 on RP 7951 in line with the current South Burnett childcare and kindergarten lease area. And 3, continue engagement with South Burnett childcare and kindergarten as to appropriate long-term tenure arrangements. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconded Councillor Jones. Speakers? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you to the staff for the wonderful work today, and thank you, councillors, for your productive participation. We'll now call the meeting closed at 2:14 p.m. Thank you.